time that case was tried. I wasn't.
So, Mr. Chairman, what we heard from the other side here is that this gentleman is the gold standard for prosecution here in the United States. So think about it. We had a witch hunt done by the IRS going after Second Amendment groups, unanimously overturned by the Supreme Court, prosecuted two prominent political figures, and they ended up as mistrials. That's a gold standard here in America. I would just say this, Mr. Chairman. If Mr. Smith ever works for the Department of Justice again, I would recommend a remedial course on the First Amendment to the Constitution. Before I yield the rest of my time, Mr. Smith, I just have one other question. Is there any historical precedent for an alternate slate of electors to be sent to Congress? Has that ever happened before?
That had happened, not anything similar to this situation, but you're correct. It was in Hawaii. I think it was Hawaii in, I want to say, the 1960 election.
So it has happened before that there was an alternate slate of electors that was sent to Congress, which does the electoral count, correct?
There was a prior time that an electoral slate was sent where there was litigation and recounts going on.
Actually, there's twice that it happened, Mr. Chairman. It happened in 1876 and 1960 that these alternate electors happened. I'd like to ask unanimous consent to introduce the 1960 Hawaii case.
Objection.
Here. With that, I yield to the chairman.
I appreciate the gentleman yielding. The gentleman from Colorado talked about noise from this side. It's not noise, it's facts. The fact is, you approved a $20,000 payment to a confidential human source. And I think you said earlier, the reason this individual or entity or person was paid was to review photo and video evidence. Why'd they have to be confidential? Why didn't you just contract with them?
My understanding is that this person was a confidential human source with the FBI. I do not know why they were confidential, but it would make sense to me, given that this person was assisting.
Well, confidential just raises the question of what were you trying to hide? Why not tell us? We know you hid the fact that you were getting phone records from members of Congress. We want to know why this payment had to be hidden. Why couldn't you just contract? Which would be the customary normal way, I think, of doing it.
I did not make the determination that this source would be confidential, but given that this person was working on an investigation involving attacks on the Capitol, and given the violence in that, it makes complete sense to me that the Bureau would.
You know of any of the other special counsels who approved payments to like I don't remember Robert Mueller approving payments to confidential human sources. I don't remember Durham. I don't remember her. We brought all those guys in front of the committee. It's the first time I've ever heard of a special counsel having to pay secret money to someone to get information when you had the broadest subpoena power you could possibly have. You aware of any of the other special counsels who had to do this?
I am not aware whether confidential sources were or were not used in those investigations.
That's because I don't think they were. I don't think they were.
I'm not aware one way or the other. I can say that the use of confidential human sources is a standard thing done by the Federal Bureau of Investigations.
The time of the gentleman from Wisconsin has expired. I now yield to the gentlelady from Georgia for 5 minutes, Ms. McBath.
Thank you, Chairman. And Mr. Smith, thank you for appearing today to speak publicly about the major issues that you handled as special counsel. Your work on election interference in my home state is especially important, as Georgia still today remains ground zero for voting rights. My state has a long history of voter suppression, including violent tactics and legislation that has actively disfranchised our voters. In fact, the Department of Justice filed a lawsuit against Georgia in 2023 challenging recently passed voter suppression legislation. That lawsuit was later withdrawn by Donald Trump's Attorney General, Pam Bondi. But this is not the first time that Donald Trump has encouraged voter suppression. In the 2020 presidential election, which many have accepted that he lost, he pressured his party members to overturn a legal election. Thankfully, several public servants upheld our constitutional process and respected the voice of the people. Your investigation revealed how far he is willing to go. In your final report, you wrote that, and I'm quoting, "The through line of all Mr. Trump's criminal efforts was deceit, knowingly false claims of fraud." Mr. Smith, what did your investigation reveal about President Trump's interactions with Georgia's officials regarding his frauds claims?
As I sit here now, I can recall two specific officials. The first was the Secretary of State, who was a fellow Republican. My understanding, he voted for and supported Donald Trump in the election, but told Donald Trump in a conversation that was recorded in no uncertain terms the results of the election, and debunked many of the fraud claims that Donald Trump had to him in real time. In addition to that, I recall that Donald Trump also spoke firsthand with the Attorney General of your state, also a Republican, who informed Donald Trump that he had supported him and voted for him twice in the past. He also told Donald Trump he did not see outcome-determined fraud in that state.
I have an audio from a phone call between Trump and the Georgia Secretary of State regarding the 2020 election. Could you please play the audio?
Are angry. The people of the country are angry, and there's nothing wrong with saying that, that you've recalculated.
Well, Mr. President, the challenge that you have is the data you have is wrong.
So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state.
Mr. Smith, you explained in your deposition that Georgia Secretary of State was one of the witnesses who disabused President Trump's false claims. How did Georgia's Secretary of State push back against Trump's efforts?
I think my recollection is in this same call, President Trump repeatedly raised fraud claims, and the Secretary of State repeatedly explained not only that they weren't true, but I believe my recollection is in several instances explained why they weren't true. And I believe that call ended, my recollection is that it ended with President Trump in essence threatening the Secretary of State that he might be a target for criminal prosecution if he didn't do what President Trump wanted him to do.
So see, that raises a very critical point. President Trump didn't just spread lies about the election. In your words, and I'm quoting, he preyed on, end quote, Republican officials in Georgia and other states who believed would help him. Mr. Smith, Donald Trump thought these officials would break the law out of party loyalty. And when those officials, his own political allies, told him the truth, he dismissed them and continued to spread the lies anyway. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Mr. Smith, if your case had gone to trial, would the evidence from Georgia have helped prove that President Trump knowingly engaged in a criminal scheme to overturn the 2020 election?
Yes. After an investigation following the facts and the law, we believed we had proof beyond a reasonable doubt to prove those charges.
And in your deposition, you mentioned a fake elector witness in Georgia who you thought would have been a very powerful witness at trial. Can you tell us a little bit more about that in a very limited amount of time?
Sure. It was a witness who had been made to understand that his electoral vote, his alternative electoral vote, would only be used if they won in court, if they won in litigation. That didn't happen, and President Trump and his co-conspirators tried to use those alternative fake elector certificates to get Mike Pence.
Mr. Chairman, regular order.
Himself.
Okay, well, Mr. Smith, thank you so much for the work that you and your team of career prosecutors have put forth in uncovering this evidence. The American people need to know what happened, and they need to know how their president pressured Georgia state officials
Time of the gentlelady is
to
expired.
overturn their free
Gentleman
and fair
from
elections. And I
Alabama
yield.
has a unanimous consent request.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. December 6, 2025, Atlanta News First. Fulton County admits to verifying 315,000 votes in the 2020 without poll worker signatures. I yield back.
Without objection, the chair now recognizes for 5 minutes the gentleman from Arizona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Smith, isn't it true that for a federal criminal conspiracy charge, it requires more than one individual. In other words, you're making a contractual agreement of some kind with somebody other than yourself, right?
That is correct. There has to be an agreement.
And so when you made the determination to charge President Trump with conspiracy, you surely knew that you had somebody else that must have agreed upon somewhere to engage in this act that generated the conspiracy, right?
That's correct. We alleged specific individuals in the indictment as co-conspirators.
And so when you knew who you were going to do, who you were going to charge when you pursued the indictment. You knew who the agreeing parties were, but you chose to list them as co-conspirators, but you didn't indict them. How often have you done that in the past?
In the past, I have had a number of cases where I have charged some members of a conspiracy and not charged others.
One member of the conspiracy. How many times have you done that? Charged one member of the conspiracy and let everybody else off the hook?
I'm sure that's happened. That is not an
You don't remember doing that?
That is not an uncommon thing to do in an investigation, in my view.
So okay. I dispute that, but we're going to leave that as it may. But let's just get to this. If a member of Congress moves to decertify a state's electors, that would not be a crime, would it?
When you say to decertify,
You make a motion to decertify on that January 6th, that way every 4 years. That's not a crime, right?
correct.
And if another elected official urged someone to join them in that decertification, that's not a crime either, right?
As you stated, it's not.
Several members of Congress get together over breakfast. They say, this is the normal path. We watched it because we saw the Democrats do it for every Republican president. So we're not sure how to do it. We've never done it before. That's not a crime to sit down at breakfast to talk about that or any other time together to talk about decertification, is it?
No, it's not a crime to talk about that over breakfast.
In your deposition, you talked about, you made the argument that an elected official who's been deemed to have lost could not knowingly make false statements about election fraud to target a lawful government operation. Isn't that true? That's what you said in your deposition, page 27.
I believe it's a lawful government function is.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, lawful government function, that's what you said. You remember saying that?
I said lawful government function. Could you read back what you said again? I'm sorry.
Yeah. An elected official who's been deemed to have lost could not knowingly make false statements about election fraud to target a lawful government function. You said that would be illegal. Remember that page? Do you want me to actually read this back? Surely you remember that position.
I'm not denying it, and I apologize. I'm just trying to listen to you closely.
Okay, let's just go right from this. You said there's, as we said in the indictment, he was free to say that he thought he won the election, right?
That is correct.
He was even free to say falsely that he won the election, correct?
That's correct.
What you said is he was not free to do was violate federal law and use knowingly false statements about election fraud to target a lawful government function.
That is correct.
Yeah, and for you, that lawful government function is the certification process, I suppose, on January 6th.
Well, it's a slightly broader than that. It's the collecting, counting, and certifying of the votes. Our view of the evidence is that begins from the point of time that the electors are certified through the counting of the votes. So that would be.
So the entire certification process from the state to the feds.
My recollection, as it's pled in the indictment, as I sit here, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it's from December 14th. I think that was the day through the voting.
Okay, so you can't recall, but for you, it's from the certification moving forward to the actual ratification of the certification process on inaugural day.
My recollection, that's what we pled in the indictment, yes.
Okay, so you've managed to filibuster us right out of this thing, but your beef was, you said that President Trump engendered a level of distrust, You said he made false statements to state legislators, to his supporters of all sorts, and somehow you discerned that his supporters were angry and that was somehow related to a criminal offense. I find that absolutely weak. I think it's misdirected, and
Time of the gentleman. Time of the gentleman's expired. Gentleman yields back.
Mr. Chair, I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record. Axios dated August 2nd, 2023. Barr says Trump's First Amendment argument in January 6th case is not valid.
Objection? Did you have one? Okay. Gentlelady from North Carolina is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Smith, many of us were here on January 6th and directly experienced what happened. Yet some of my colleagues across the aisle still insist that Trump had no role in the violence. In videos of the raging battle against our brave Capitol Police officers, many rioters were screaming things like, "We were invited here by the president." Mr. Smith, did your investigation uncover evidence that some of the rioters had gone to the Capitol because they really believed the president had invited them there?
There were, I believe there's video of rioters saying, in fact, that, as we pled in the indictment, the knowing lies that Donald Trump put out in the weeks leading up to that led to a level of distrust, and he ultimately knew that the crowd at the Capitol, or at the Ellipse, I should say, was angry before he told them to march toward the Capitol.
And we've seen report after report of rioters who have said that if Donald Trump had not convinced them that the election had been stolen, they might not have even come to Washington. I'm going to share some quotes from some of those rioters. "I believed I was following up on the instructions of former President Trump," one rioter said about going to the Capitol. "I marched to the U.S. Capitol because President Trump said to do so," another said. "He personally asked for me to come that day," said another. Can you give us a few examples of Trump's rhetoric and language that inspired people to go to the Capitol believing that they were going on the president's direct order?
One instance I can recall is during the speech he gave to his supporters, and in context, his supporters, he told them to come to Washington, D.C. and be wild. He was on notice that they were angry, and he told that crowd, "We can't let this happen." And he told them that, my recollection is multiple times, at a time when there was nothing that could be done to stop the outcome of the election, but to obstruct it. In addition to that, he told them when there is fraud, you can go by different rules. And my recollection is there is a videotape of when he's making these sort of statements and he's saying that they need to fight if they want to save their country. There are, in fact, people in the crowd chanting, "Fight for Trump." That all happened during the Ellipse speech before people headed towards the Capitol and the Capitol was attacked.
And did your investigation find any of the rioters trying to use Trump's words and calls to action as a defense in the criminal cases against them? I can read you something from your special counsel report.
I was
if you'd
just
like.
going to say, I think we cited a number of rioters who ultimately admitted that they had committed their crimes at the behest and in the name of Donald Trump.
Okay. And it happened several times, and many of those accounts are on page 86 and page 87 of the special counsel report. Even the lawyer for Jacob Chansley, also known as the QAnon shaman, highlighted that his words, how the words affected his client. He heard the words of the president, he believed them, he genuinely believed them, and he thought that the president was actually going to walk with them to the Capitol. For my final question, Mr. Smith, do you believe that Donald Trump motivated and was responsible for the violence that occurred on that day, even if he didn't walk with them to the Capitol?
Yes, as we stated in our report, the results of our investigation following the facts and following the law was that he was the person most responsible for what happened at the Capitol, and that he caused what happened at the Capitol, and that it was foreseeable to him.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I have two UCs.
Joan can state her unanimous consent request.
I asked unanimous consent to enter into the record a tweet from Representative Biggs on January 7th, 2021, in which he said, quote, "Yesterday, criminal rioters hijacked a joint session of Congress."
Objection. Without objection.
And the second one is a unanimous consent to enter into the record an interview from March 2024 on the Capitol Hill show, in which you called on those who attacked the Capitol on January 6th to be, quote, "held accountable because, quote, that's the way our system does work and should work."
Without objection.
Thank you very much. Thank you
I
very
recognize
much.
the gentleman from Texas.
Thank the Chairman. Mr. Smith, how many members of Congress or the Senate did you subpoena phone toll records?
As I sit here right now, I do not recall a specific number.
Is this the complete list right here? Well, let me ask you this. Am I on this list? Did you target my records and subpoena my phone toll records?
My understanding is your records were subpoenaed by prosecutors before I became special counsel.
Well, the staff would put this up on the screen. I'm thankful for the great staff who discovered the email where I learned for the first time a few weeks ago that my phone records were indeed targeted. We called AT&T and we've learned that they were given to the Department of Justice, as this email indicates, because I had been in communication with Scott Perry, one of my colleagues here in Congress, who literally had his phone taken from him in front of his family. And of course, as we've already talked about in this document, it talks about you could be in violation of the privilege by even obtaining and possessing this information if the member objected to the disclosure. This happened 4 years ago in May of 2022, and I couldn't object because I didn't know. I didn't know until about 3 weeks ago. My question here is, was there any limits to your investigation or the investigation that preceded you, Mr. Smith? Because as egregious as a violation of separation of powers this is, as an egregious and abuse of power it is, it's far more concerning you are clearly targeting American citizens for merely being conservative or supporting the president. We've got memos that we've already been talking about in this hearing from April 2022 that preceded you that established and opened the investigations, one of which has Attorney General Merrick Garland's signature on it. And the focus was the electors. Now that was 6 months before you were appointed. You testified earlier, you met and interviewed Merrick Garland and Deputy AG Lisa Monaco. And you briefed the AG and deputy multiple times. Did you brief them on the electors and the prosecution of their supposed crimes?
Did I? I'm sorry.
Did you brief them on the electors and their supposed crimes?
I don't recall specific conversations, but I'm sure that in the course of briefing them, I discussed.
Wasn't that the purpose of the entire investigation as it was set out? Because putting aside that in 1960, it was already talked about, my friend Mr. Tiffany, that Hawaii put forward an alternate slate of electors, the investigation pivoted to President Trump and, frankly, anybody who knew him. Do you know who Cleta Mitchell is?
Yes, I do.
She's an election lawyer that was involved in filing an election contest on behalf of President Trump in Georgia in December of 2020. A 64-page complaint with over 1,100 pages of exhibits, witness affidavits, and expert witness reports documenting thousands of votes cast in violation of Georgia law, but which were nevertheless included in the vote totals. Now, notwithstanding the disposition of the cases that was filed, is that a criminal act? Filing an election contest on behalf of a candidate for office, a client. Is that a criminal act, yes or no?
No, in fact, we
So
stated.
why did you deem it appropriate to monitor Cleta Mitchell's long-distance phone records in 2023, 2.5 years after the election contest was filed and after the presidential electors were certified? What about Jen Ellis? What about Sidney Powell? What about Bill Sepien? What crime did you suspect had been committed by them that would warrant monitoring their phone records 2.5 years after the 2020 election was certified?
With respect to Sidney Powell, she is one of the co-conspirators alleged in the indictment. I don't know what you mean by monitoring, sir, if you're talking.
Well, there were some 400 plus Republican conservative groups and leaders who were targeted by your investigation. Their financial records were obtained, records of the RNC, the Trump campaign, Cleta Mitchell, the Conservative Partnership Institute, the America First Policy Institute, NRCC, NRSC, PACs, conservative groups, people all across the country, citizens, because we hear a lot about members of Congress. And we should, because of separation of powers and the egregious abuse of power. But what we're not talking about enough, in my opinion, are the American citizens that have been targeted. Because frankly, are there any limits to the power of a special prosecutor or special counsel? So much so in your abuse of power that in the summer of 2024, the indictment involving classified documents was dismissed after determining your appointment violated the Appointments Clause of the Constitution, but you continued to sign your name on court filings until the time you resigned from office in January of 2025. A federal judge just recently stated a prosecutor who continues to sign his name in court filings after a disqualification order should face disciplinary action or disbarment. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.
Did the gentleman have the opportunity to respond?
If the gentleman wants to respond, he can.
With respect to the last point, Judge Cannon's order specifically limited her finding to that proceeding. So there would be nothing improper about continuing to litigate the cases in Washington, D.C. And with respect to Florida, there was nothing improper about taking an appeal of that very decision.
The gentlelady from Vermont is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Smith, I want to discuss Volume 2 of your report, which summarizes the findings of your investigation into President Trump's hoarding of classified documents at Mar-a-Lago and his efforts to obstruct the FBI's investigation. Mr. Smith, is it generally the practice for a special counsel's report to be made public to the American people?
I want to say first, I'm limited what I can say about Volume 2 because of Judge Cannon's order. I can say generally that with respect to special counsels, there are regulations that direct a special counsel to draft a report. Whether that report becomes public is determined, the Attorney General has the authority to determine that.
To the best of your knowledge, was Special Counsel Mueller's report made public in full?
I know it was made public. I'm not sure if it was made public in full.
What about Special Counsel Herr's report?
My recollection is his report was made public in full. I believe that's correct.
And Special Counsel Weiss's report?
I do not know.
Okay. Now, I understand that the district judge, Aileen Cannon, the Trump appointee who oversaw the case in Florida, issued a gag order that prevents you from discussing any parts of the classified documents investigation that is not already public. I understand that, including your findings that you laid out in Volume 2 of that report. Am I correct that the reason your report is not available in full to the public is because of this gag order?
I wrote a report. The Attorney General, it was submitted to him. I understand generally that there's been litigation about whether this report would be public or not. I have not been a party to that litigation. I just know that there is an order, and I know the Department of Justice, the current Department of Justice, has interpreted that order in a way that I cannot speak about anything that could possibly be in that report and its findings.
And when Judge Cannon issued that gag order, she cited pending cases against Trump's co-defendants. Is that correct?
I'm sorry?
When Judge Cannon issued the gag order, she cited pending cases against Trump's co-defendants. Is that correct?
That's my recollection.
Are those cases still pending?
No, they're not.
No, they're not. So there is no reason, from where I sit, for this important information to be not made public. At this point, I want to turn now to President Trump's attacks on you. Trump has a playbook for how he handles people who try to hold him accountable. In August 2023, right after your office indicted him, President Trump shared that playbook on social media for everyone to see. He wrote, "If you go after me, I'm coming for you." Trump has said that you, Mr. Smith, should be investigated and put in prison. He called you a disgrace to humanity, a radical left Marxist, a criminal, In fact, Trump has used the words deranged Jack Smith 185 times on Truth Social. How do you think that these statements have impacted you, your staff, and your investigation?
With respect to me, I think the statements are meant to intimidate me. I will not be intimidated. I think these statements are also made as a warning to others what will happen if they stand up. And I am, as I say, I'm not going to be intimidated. We did our work pursuant to department policy. We followed the facts and we followed the law, and that process resulted in proof beyond a reasonable doubt that he committed serious crimes. I'm not going to pretend that didn't happen because he's threatening me.
And Mr. Smith, do you believe that President Trump's Department of Justice will find some way to indict you?
I believe that they will do everything in their power to do that because they've been ordered to by the president.
That's very concerning, obviously. It's very concerning to all of us, at least on this side of the aisle. This is Trump's playbook at work. Complain loudly, gin up hatred and resentment, then express our hope that somebody will do something, but never explicitly order anyone to act, and then watch as his followers and loyalists go after their targets. This is what happened on January 6th. Trump stood at the Ellipse and gave a campaign speech to his supporters, and he said, if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. And I think it's clear that his intimidation will stop at nothing. I want to speak on behalf, in closing, I want to speak on behalf
No
of
closing.
people.
Chairman, regular order.
No, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman,
I'm
regular
sorry,
order.
you have gone over numerous times.
Time belongs to
I am
the
taking
gentlelady
my
from Vermont.
few
I'll let you
moments.
go a couple more
Thank you,
seconds.
Mr. Chair.
Like I have all day.
Thank you. On behalf of the people of the state of Vermont, thank you for all of your 30 years of service to this country, and to the police officers sitting here. I'm ashamed that you have not gotten your due.
Time of the gentlelady has expired.
yield back.
The gentleman from New Jersey is
I've got a UC request.
Gentleman, the ranking member is recognized for UC.
Thank you kindly, Mr. Chairman. The first is a New York Times article titled "Hunting Leaks, Trump DOJ Officials Seized Records of Democrats," explaining how the Trump administration subpoenaed Apple for data from the accounts of at least a dozen people tied to the House Intelligence Committee in 2017-18, including Representative Swalwell and Senator Adam Schiff.
Without objection.
And the other, similarly, is Trump's DOJ secretly obtained phone and text message logs of 43 congressional staffers and 2 members of Congress. That's December 10, 2024.
Without objection. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from New Jersey.
Thank you, Chairman. You know, I don't even know where to go because there's so much, Mr. Smith. There really is. But it isn't, what I do know is it's much more than how much people like or hate you, or like or hate Donald Trump, or like or hate Republicans, or like or hate Democrats. This is about the system. It's about what the Department of Justice did. It's about what you did. The core of the hearing is all about, can Americans still trust the justice system? Is it fair? Was it fair under you? And all they don't expect you to be perfect, but they expect you to treat everyone the same, Republicans and Democrats, liberals and conservatives, but that wasn't the case. When you treat people differently because of their political status, their political party, their ideals, that's hypocrisy. And I'm sorry to say, and I don't say it lightly, I do consider you to be a hypocrite. With that being said, you know, I think the prosecutors and the people around you stretch norms, change standards depending upon who was under investigation. So you don't like Donald Trump, and so you're a liberal Democrat, whatever the case may be. And they went after him. And by the way, it's interesting, in all those congressional records that were subpoenaed, all those congressional records that were looked at, was one of them a Democrat? No. The answer is no. I'll answer for you. So I got simple questions. I always say I'm a simple guy, but it really boils down to this. How much can Americans trust this system? In your special counsel report, you stated President Trump engaged and was guilty of criminal conspiracies, and he was guilty of criminal conduct, and you publicly testified you believed you had the proof, et cetera. If prosecutors deal this way with cases, if they declare that it's guilty and it's over before a jury verdict, would Americans trust the justice system more, or would they? Would they trust the system more? The answer, go ahead, answer, please answer.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you were asking me.
So when this was all going on, before, and I believe it was political, before there was an entire case and we went through the whole case, you pretty much declared, and I'm not going to read the whole thing through again, that President Trump was guilty. That wasn't your job. That's a judge's job. It's a jury's job. It's not your job. Don't you think that's unfair, that that's wrong, that didn't make the playing field level? Did it make people less trustworthy of the system, yes or no?
No. When I announced the charges in the election case, I specifically stated that the case needed to be tried and that he had a right to go to trial and he was presumed innocent.
And thank you for, I just want a simple answer because we are limited on time. I disagree with you. I don't think you did. Your office secretly subpoenaed and got records of members of Congress. And you kept those subpoenas hidden through non-disclosure orders. That's wrong. They should have known. You want to do that, fine, it's wrong. Number one, it's wrong because people have a right, the American public has a right to know, the elected officials have a right to know. It's your right to subpoena them, but they should know. Secondly, and I brought this up before, not one Democrat, it's all Republicans, all Republicans. Everything you've done, everything you've ever done is always against Republicans. Do you think that puts more trust in the system when you're so partisan in that way? Yes or no?
No. Politics played no role in our investigation. I have prosecuted Republicans and Democrats throughout my career. I have dismissed cases against Republicans and Democrats.
Because you didn't have the proof. If prosecutors routinely rely on politically imbalanced investigations, and by this I mean, let me appeal to your sense of fairness. You're saying you're a fair man. We had a January 6th committee, select committee, that was appointed only by a Democrat, the then Speaker, Nancy Pelosi. Everybody on it was a Democrat, except 2 Republicans that hated Republicans. Was that fair? Was that fair? I mean, look at our system here in Congress. We've got Democrats, man, they speak up. You've got Republicans, we speak up. You hear both sides. That's the way a select committee should be. And you based everything upon this biased, unfair, prejudiced system. How is that fair? Tell me how that's fair.
That's not correct. We conducted an independent investigation.
You based a lot on that commission. You got all their records.
That's not correct. We did collect their records. We conducted our own independent investigation following the facts and the law. The
and you used a lot of their information, Mr. Smith. I don't mean to cut you off. I've got limited time. Joe Biden took classified records that were not to be taken when he was vice president and when he was Senate. And I know you didn't deal directly with that case.
Mr. Chairman?
But nevertheless, he did. Is that fair? Because he let him go, don't do anything to him. But on the other hand, when it's President Trump who did it as president, then there was, you raided Mar-a-Lago. Is that fair?
I'm the gentleman.
Mr.
Gentleman's part.
Well, I'd like him to answer.
If the witness would like to respond, he can.
I have no response.
It's damn unfair. That's the answer.
We've got UC requests.
UC request from the gentlelady from California.
Yes, I have a unanimous consent request. I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record the government's sentencing memorandum for Capitol rioter Cody Mattis, who said that, quote, when the former president asked his supporters to march on the Capitol, it was not a call to peacefully and patriotically make your voice
Objection.
heard, but to storm and seize the building.
And I've got one, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman's recognized.
This is a press release from Congressman Jeff Van Drew's statement on storming the Capitol building, calling it unacceptable, un-American, and disrespectful of democracy.
Without objection, the chair now recognizes the gentleman from Illinois.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Smith, for being here today. Let's remember why we're here today. Donald Trump incited an insurrection in 2020 because he refused to accept that he lost that election. And then he took classified documents with him and put them in Mar-a-Lago. Republicans support impunity for criminals, not accountability. There's no clearer example than that of the blanket pardon of nearly 1,600 insurrectionists on day one of this disgraceful presidency. Trump pardoned people convicted of seditious conspiracy who brutalized police officers. There are 4 of them who can testify to that here, and who wanted to kill Vice President Pence. People who've committed more crimes since the insurrection: sexual assault, child molestation, aggravated kidnapping. Tell the truth. Mr. Smith, let me ask you something. Does pardoning violent rioters who brutalize law enforcement officers, spray peppering them, tasering them, beating them up, kicking them, smashing them in door frames, make our country safer?
Absolutely not.
As a prosecutor, can you describe why these pardons make our communities less safe and undermine our criminal legal system more broadly?
The people who assaulted police officers and were convicted after trial, in my view, and I think in the view of the judges who sentenced them to prison, are dangerous to their community. As you've mentioned, some of these people have already committed crimes against their communities again, and I think all of us, if we're reasonable, know that there's going to be more crimes committed by these people in the future. I do not understand why you would mass pardon people who assaulted police officers. I don't get it. I never will.
That's exactly right. And none of this is a coincidence. The entire purpose of the Republican Party, unfortunately, has become to help criminals and corporate interests evade accountability. Republicans want impunity, not accountability. They want impunity for the January 6th people, for the classified documents case, for the Epstein files, for billionaires and big corporations, and for terror that DHS is sowing on our streets. The Gestapo tactics by ICE and CBP are the obvious result of President Trump and the Republican Party that protect anyone who helps them turn our country into an authoritarian gangster state. Whether it's storming the Capitol to overthrow an election or murdering people in broad daylight, Republicans will back you if you back their political mafia and racketeering operation. That's why Democrats must fight for accountability through oversight, through legislation, evidence collection, and through prosecution for the openly criminal acts that we're seeing in our communities every day. Democracy doesn't exist without accountability, but you gotta have a spine. I thank you, Mr. Smith, for doing your part. Our fight continues for accountability, not for impunity. Thank you, and I yield back.
May I have a
Mr. Chairman, I would yield to the gentleman from New York.
Mr. Smith, I just want to take a minute and allow you to explain why you requested the toll records of those officials for January 6th.
For the January 6th investigation, you mean,
Yeah.
correct? With regard to the toll records that were subpoenaed regarding the period of the 4th, I think it was to the 7th, we had evidence that the president had directed Rudy Giuliani, one of his co-conspirators, to contact members of Congress to try to further delay the proceedings and exploit the violence that happened in the Capitol. We had evidence that those calls had happened. We wanted to get more evidence of that to corroborate it for trial. That is, again, as I've mentioned earlier today, a standard part of an investigation to understand who a conspiracy is trying to reach out to, how they're trying to influence people.
And you want a documentary confirmation?
Yes, correct.
Yield back.
Time of the gentleman is expired. The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Nels, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Smith, I'll just cut right to the chase here. Your investigation and attempted prosecution of President Trump, it wasn't about justice. It was about politics. Politics. From day one, under the Biden-Harris DOJ, you weaponized the law to go after their top political opponent. You pushed flawed legal theories, and even the far left Washington Post called you out They called you out, sir, for violating the First Amendment. You tried to criminalize political speech, slap unlawful gag orders on a presidential candidate, and spy on Republican members of Congress in violation of the speech or debate clause, including the sitting Speaker of the House. Mr. Smith, you mishandled documents, pressured defense lawyers, and dumped a massive trove of so-called evidence right before the election, and you did it to sway voters. That's why you did it. And don't get me started on that raid at Mar-a-Lago or your unconstitutional appointment, which a federal judge in Florida rightly tossed out. A very bad day for you. This wasn't, Mr. Smith, about upholding the law. It was about tearing down President Trump and anyone close to him. You even tried to ram through a politically motivated final report after your cases collapsed, including the Presidential Transition Act and basic fairness. But here's the good part, America, here's the good part. The American people saw right through it. They rejected, sir, your witch hunt loud and clear in November, handing President Trump a commanding victory. The voters spoke loud and clear. They wanted an end to the weaponization of our justice system. In your opening statement, you spoke about proof of beyond a reasonable doubt. Mr. Smith, I will give you proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Donald Trump winning the popular vote by over 2 million votes. The Electoral College by 85 votes, along with every single swing state. Now, sir, that is proof beyond a reasonable doubt that the crap you were shoveling did not pass the smell test with the American people. To put it bluntly, Mr. Smith, the stink remains on you. And lastly, I would like to quickly address the police officers of January 6th. Mr. Dunn, Mr. Fanone, Mr. Gonell, Mr. Hodges. I'm a member of the new select committee to actually examine what happened that day. And I can tell you, gentlemen, that the fault does not lie with Donald Trump. It lies with Yogananda Pittman and the U.S. Capitol leadership team. We know they had the intelligence, and there was going to be a high propensity for violence that day. Claim my time, yeah.
You will be in order. The time belongs to the gentleman from Texas. We've had some disruptions already. We don't need that. Let the gentleman may continue.
We know the Capitol leadership team, specifically Yogananda Pittman, had the intelligence, and there was going to be a high propensity for violence that day. And the Capitol itself was the target. We knew the extremist groups were going to be there. And why do I say that? It was your own report from your intelligence section, the IICD, which was run by Pittman, in the January 3rd special events section. It was in it. It was in it. And Mr. Dunn, I believe that you thought that day would be like just any other. In your testimony to the January 6th committee, you said you found out how ugly was going to get on a cell phone. Somebody sent you some information on social media. The point is, you were all unprepared to deal with that day. And that's because your leadership failed to share the intelligence with you. It was their fault, folks. It was their fault. It was not President Trump. And we are going to expose it for the first time because the Benny Thompson, the sham committee didn't do it.
Will the gentleman yield for a question?
The sham committee didn't do it. The report is 845 pages. Donald Trump's name is mentioned 4,207 times. We know what the committee wanted to do is to not allow Donald Trump to come back and win again. And they failed miserably, and I hope you now can see that. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield the balance to my distinguished colleague out of Jersey.
I just want to quickly go over something because we keep rewriting history. The president said peacefully and patriotically. What don't we understand about peacefully and patriotically? He asked for the National Guard. That was ignored. He asked Speaker Pelosi. What don't we understand that?
Will the gentleman yield for a question? Are you saying Nancy Pelosi controls the National Guard?
Wait a minute.
The president could have ordered the National Guard if he wanted to, and you know that.
Claim my time. I lost some of my time.
The time belongs to the gentleman from New Jersey. You have a few more seconds.
And finally, how many elected officials say we're going to fight to win an election? terminology used all the time, seriously. And of course, if they were guilty, they should be prosecuted. The problem was there were many in the mix.
Of unanimous consent, gentleman yields back. The
And last thing,
gentleman back.
your hand gestures, Mr. Fanone.
No.
You need
The time of the gentleman's
medication.
expired. The time of the gentleman expired. The audience will be in order, the committee will be in order, and the gentlelady from Georgia is recognized for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 2 unanimous consent requests to enter into the record, 2 articles.
Gentlelady can proceed.
An article dated December 29, 2025, titled Wall Street Journal Editorial Board Calls Out MAGA's Latest 2020 Stolen Election Nonsense.
Objection.
And the second article, an article dated December 23, 2025, titled Fact Check. Fulton County's 315,000 unsigned early votes are not proof of electoral fraud.
Without objection, the gentleman from Illinois is recognized for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Chairman. Under unanimous consent, I ask to enter into the record the Judiciary Democrats' January 2026 report titled, "Where Are They Now? The Perpetrators of January 6th and the Defenders of Democracy Who Stopped Them," which profiles the illustrious career trajectories of some of the key actors from January 6th who were pardoned by Donald Trump. And secondly,
objection.
A second report, January 2026 report from Judiciary Democrats, 1 year later, assessing the public safety implications of President Trump's mass pardon of 1,600 January 6 rioters and insurrectionists.
Without objection, the gentlelady from California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Smith, for joining us. You know, most people are wondering why you are even here today. But it's because we've heard conspiracy after conspiracy that the 2020 election was rigged. And Capitol Police officers were harmed and died because of those conspiracies. And we have important elections coming up. And the people want them to happen, and they want them to be fair. And the one person who should be telling the truth about elections is the president. But Donald Trump has not and is still not telling the truth about the 2020 elections. In fact, there is a January 6th page on the taxpayer-funded White House website that says the election was stolen from Trump, a blatant, disproven lie he knows is totally false. So one of my Republican colleagues earlier brought up Trump's mind state, that he knew he lost, and he knew that what he was saying was untrue, but that you had no proof. So, Mr. Smith, what evidence did you develop to suggest Trump knew he had lost the 2020 election?
We had evidence from a variety of sources, evidence from people who were close to Donald Trump and who he relied on, people who wanted him to win the election, people who were employed by his campaign to help him win the election. Our evidence is that this was a conspiracy and that Donald Trump specifically sought to prey on party loyalty. Our investigation involved interviewing and subpoenaing records of Republicans because that's who Donald Trump sought to prey on to stay in office. And the reality is certain people refused to do that. The vice president refused to go along with that. People in various states' legislatures refused to go along with that. And the reality is that if we took this case to trial, a good number of our witnesses would be Republicans. If a Democrat had committed these crimes, had done these things, I would have subpoenaed a number of Democrats. I would have subpoenaed their records.
And I'm going to ask you about that. But correct, it's not like he was calling Nancy Pelosi. So why is it legally important to know that Trump knew he was lying when he said the election was stolen?
That was part of our proof at trial, and it was relevant to the charges, specifically to the first charge, to defraud the United States. It is permissible for someone to lie, but when they use speech to commit a crime, to facilitate a crime, that is not protected by the First Amendment. The Supreme Court has been very clear on that, and this very issue was litigated in the case. The defense raised this very issue. And one thing I want to be clear about today, the case that I investigated and the case we had, it was built to be tried in a courtroom, not in the media. Our case was built to withstand the crucible of litigation, and our assessment was that we had proof beyond a reasonable doubt that would do that.
So what I heard you say is that when you lie, and you know you're lying, and then you act on that lie to overturn the democratic process, that is a felony. A January 6er actually said, if I can't trust him, then who can I trust? Exactly. You know, we cannot even trust our own president. And in fact, there's so many other things that you can say that you're not allowed to say because a Trump-appointed judge sealed the documents, refusing to release the files yet again, which is why we could probably ask you far more questions if those were unsealed. So I know I don't have that much time. I want to now shift to these allegations from my Republican colleagues about the collection of phone records of Republican senators. I guess some of the ones that were trying to get $500,000 of taxpayer dollars. So many of the phone records of members were requested before you were appointed as special counsel, yes or no? That's true? Is that accurate?
Yes,
Yeah.
some subpoenas occurred before I was special counsel.
And what do you say to those who claim you chose to target Republicans because you only collected phone records for Republicans?
The conspiracy I was investigating targeted Republicans.
Right.
As I mentioned earlier.
That's right. And so you would have requested any relevant call records necessary for your investigation of a Republican or of a Democrat?
That's correct. And to be clear, if a Democrat committed these acts, we would have sought those. I could just add one thing. We interviewed Rudy Giuliani in the course of this investigation, and we asked him, why did you, in one of the voicemails he left for the senator, mention the fact that it was Republicans that you were reaching out to? And he said, because the Democrats weren't going to help us, and even some Republicans wouldn't help us. And so our evidence shows repeatedly that the plan was to see if you could prey on people's party loyalty.
Time of the gentlelady's expired. The gentlelady from...
Thank you, I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. The gentlelady from Wyoming is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Smith, it was during your deposition with our committee that you revealed that you tasked your team, specifically J.P. Cooney, to engage with the partisan January 6th committee. You had to have known at the time the controversy surrounding this committee, including the fact that all of the members had been appointed by Nancy Pelosi, who disallowed the Republicans from being able to engage. Yet you proceeded anyway, raising numerous questions as to your strategy for conspiring with the J6 committee. You had every possible resource available to you. Your prosecution of President Trump was clearly a priority for the Biden administration, and it is clear that you had an unlimited budget. And you also left no stone unturned, even subpoenaing records from sitting members of the House and Senate. So what information could the J6 committee possess that you and the nation's top law enforcement agency could not obtain on your own?
I did request J.P. Cooney.
What did they have that you couldn't obtain on your own?
In any investigation, you would...
What information did they have that you were not able to obtain on your own?
I couldn't know that until I had their information.
Was there anything there? Did you find that they had information that you were not able to obtain?
I don't recall specifically every bit of information. What I can tell you is we took in their information because we wanted to collect any information that could be relevant. We made our own independent assessment of the evidence.
Okay, so from the time that you were appointed as special counsel up to the date of your resignation in January of 2025, did you personally have any contact with any members, staff, or contractors of the House's January 6th Select Committee, and if so, who?
I do not believe I had contact with anybody personally from the January Select
The
Committee.
January 6th committee failed to archive or preserve its video recordings of witness interviews, deleting or destroying as many as 900 interview summaries or transcripts involving more than 1 full terabyte of digital data. I repeat, the J6th committee destroyed evidence. Let that sink in. Why would they do such a thing? I think we have a dang good idea. The committee actually used selective clips from these videos and transcripts during their hearings, and yet by destroying this evidence, they have denied Congress and the public the ability to obtain their full content and context. They created their narrative by selective use of the evidence before them. So how very convenient. Did you or your team receive any of those witness transcripts or video recordings of transcribed interviews from the Select Committee that were not released to the public?
What I can tell you is that I requested J.P. Cooney to contact the Select Committee.
Do you know if you received any of the evidence or testimony that the J6 Committee eventually destroyed?
I don't have any information that the J6 Committee
You don't know
destroyed
one
any
way or
evidence.
the other as you sit here today.
No, what I'm telling you is that I requested all the information we could get from the January 6th.
Has all of the information that you requested been preserved? All of the information from the J6 Committee, has that been preserved?
The information that we requested and received, we reviewed it. It was
Has it
part of
been
our file.
preserved?
Yes, as part
Thank
of
you.
our files. And
Were you or your team advised, or did you get the impression from anyone affiliated with the January 6th committee that these documents were not for public release, even though portions of them had already been shown to the American people? Were you advised to keep any of the information from the J6 committee confidential?
as I sit here right now, I don't recall that.
Okay.
I recall.
Did the J6 committee provide you with the Cassidy Hutchinson testimony as part of the trove of documents that you received?
As I sit here now, I don't recall, but it would.
Well,
be very
you're
like-
familiar with her testimony, aren't you?
I am, and
And in fact, wouldn't you agree with me that Ms. Hutchinson's testimony, especially the most explosive allegations made, was comprised of hearsay upon hearsay upon hearsay? Come on, you're an attorney, Mr. Smith. You can answer the question. Of course it was hearsay. And hearsay isn't admissible in a court of law, is it? Why? Because it is inherently unreliable, and the victim or the target of a prosecution is not able to cross-examine. Isn't that correct? In fact, Mr. Smith, if you had attempted to walk into court with Cassidy Hutchinson's testimony, you would have been thrown out on your ear. No judge, no legitimate judge would have ever allowed the testimony of Cassidy Hutchins to be admitted in a court of law, would they?
I disagree.
Well, and then we've already talked about your record.
Mr. Chairman,
today,
Mr.
so I
Chairman,
can
the gentlelady's
understand
time
why
has long
I
since
yield
expired.
back.
The time of the gentlelady has expired. The gentleman from Florida.
Can I do one UC request first?
The gentleman is recognized.
This is from factcheck.org. Meme rehashes old false claim that J6 committee destroyed evidence from October 15, 2024. And this is from the District of Columbia National Guard website, stating that this is the only National Guard unit in America which reports exclusively and only to the president.
Without objection, the gentleman from Florida is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, we're definitely not in a court of law today. Half this shit wouldn't come in if we were. I mean, good God. You know? I want to talk about something one of my colleagues, Mr. Nell, said from Texas. He sits on this new January 6th subcommittee, which I also happen to sit on. And he said the same thing in the subcommittee the other week, that it wasn't President Trump that inspired January 6th, right? It wasn't him. He said in the subcommittee that it was actually Ray Epps. Ray Epps. He was the one who told people to break the law and the windows and the doors and to beat police officers and hang Mike Pence and try to break into the floor of the House and wiping feces on the walls. It was all this guy, Ray Epps, right? So who is Ray Epps? Why is he so powerful? So, I mean, I just did a quick, Google search of Ray Epps, and his Wikipedia page says the powerful Ray Epps is a wedding planner to the Oath Keepers. This is the wedding planner? That's the mastermind of January. You went from Donald Trump. It wasn't Donald. Who are we going to blame? Who could it be? How about the wedding planner to the Oath Keepers? I mean, it's just pathetic. But, my colleagues love the past, Mr. Smith. Love the past. That's why you're here before Pam Bondi. Okay? We haven't had the Attorney General here. We didn't have her last year. She's the only one in the cabinet to not come in committee of reference, but they love the past. Oh, they love talking about January 6th and Hunter Biden and COVID and Barack Obama and Hillary's emails. They love the past. These people love the past so much they're still reenacting the Civil War. Okay? Love the past.
Right now.
But they hate talking about the present. But you know what? Let's talk about the past real quick. Here are some quotes, because I heard one of my colleagues call you a hypocrite. Here are some quotes from my colleagues. Chairman Jordan, right after January 6th, stop the violence, support Capitol Police. Ted Cruz, those storming the Capitol need to stop right now. The Constitution protects but not violence. Chip Roy, today the People's House was attacked, which is an attack on the Republic itself. Steve Scalise, United States Capitol Police saved my life. Lindsey Graham, when it comes to accountability, the president needs to understand his actions were the problem. Troy Nels, oh my God, him again. I'm happy to stand shoulder to shoulder with Capitol Police. Darrell Issa, the violence and turmoil we witnessed in Washington, D.C. was completely unacceptable. Rep. McClintock, the attack on Capitol strikes the most sacred act of our democracy. And former Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, whose name we heard a lot today, what did he have to say about it? Let me be clear, last week's violence attack on the Capitol was undemocratic, un-American, and criminal. And make no mistake, those who were responsible should be brought to justice. The president bears responsibility. Period. Or exclamation point. But let's talk also about, the present. That's the past. Let's talk about the present. These are the guys who created the weaponization committee for the DOJ. So let's talk about the present. Jerome Powell facing investigation, okay? In fact, we heard about Jonathan Turley, that he's some legal messiah. Jonathan Turley calls the Jerome Powell thing legitimate concerns of retaliation. Lisa Cook, under investigation. Mark Kelly, United States Senator, under investigation. Adam Schiff, United States Senator, under investigation. Eric Swalwell, United States Representative, under investigation. Chris Christie, potentially under investigation. Jack Smith, oh, that's you, under investigation. Okay, Miles Taylor, former Chief of Staff to United States Department of Homeland Security, under investigation. Christopher Krebs, former Director of Cybersecurity, under investigation. Indicted. James Comey, Letitia James. John Bolton. It's weird that they indicted John Bolton but stole his foreign policy. Accused of crimes. Former President Joe Biden. Former President Barack Obama. Revoked or threatened with revocation of Secret Service protection. Kamala Harris. Hunter Biden. Ashley Biden, the daughter of President Joe Biden. Mayorkas. Mike Pompeo. Brian Hook. General Mark Milley. John Bolton. Dr. Anthony Fauci, the guy Trump gave a medal to. Security clearance. Blinken, Jacob Sullivan, Lisa Monaco, Mark Zaid, Norman Eisen, Letitia James, Alvin Bragg, Andrew Weissman, Hillary Clinton, Liz Cheney, Kamala Harris, Adam Kinzinger, Fiona Hill, Alexander Vindman, Miles Taylor. I could keep going. Any questions about any of that? We know you don't.
But will the gentleman yield for a question?
I will, please.
Because you have a way of synthesizing that nobody else does, Mr. Moskowitz. Listening to our colleagues today, I wonder if they actually believe any of this would have happened had Donald Trump simply accepted the results of the election.
You mean like Al Gore did when he lost 5-4 at the Supreme Court?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would any of this, would the violence have happened? Would the fake counterfeit slates have happened?
No,
the threats against Vice President Pence?
No, none of it would have happened. And Leon Panetta would still have his security clearance, so would John Brennan, so would Michael Morrell, Michael Vickers. I can't get them all in, Mr. Chairman. I can't get them. I have like 4 more pages of the weaponization of the Department of Justice.
The time of the gentleman from Florida
Concern.
has expired. The gentleman from South Carolina is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Smith, when was the initial indictment issued on President Trump? August 1st, 2023, does that sound about right?
That's in the election case. That's correct.
Correct. And on that election case, after that, you asked for a trial date when?
I don't recall as I sit here right now.
January 2024, does that sound about right?
That sounds about right.
Okay, so after the indictment, you in August, you asked for a January trial date. That's like 5 months? 5 months? How much evidence did you have? Millions of pages?
As I sit here right now, I don't recall the exact.
I think in your testimony, they talked about a number, 13 million pages. Is that a ballpark accurate number?
I think that was the question asked of me, and as I sit here, I don't have an accurate number for
So let's just assume that that's true, right? Because you had a bunch of stuff. You had $50 million that you blew through the Treasury on a trial that went nowhere. How many pages per day is that? 100,000? That sound about right? What if we break that down per hour? It's 4,166 per minute is 70 pages. You like to read, sir? You like to read?
I do.
Do you read 70 pages a minute?
I do not.
I mean, that would be remarkable. So how do you prepare for a trial in 5 months if you're asking the defense counsel to read 70 pages a minute? How do you do that and prepare a defense and look at all the witness testimony and video evidence that you supposedly had? How do you do that? You know what's shocking to me, and I think that one of the most egregious aspects of this case, Mr. Smith, is that if you get a traffic ticket in Washington, D.C., you're not going to trial in 5 months. But you want the president, the former president of the United States, to have a trial date with 13 million pages of documents within 5 months. I think that's ridiculous. And I think that speaks exactly to what we talk about when we examine not only your record, but the things in this case that are deeply troubling. That this was not the pursuit of facts and law and letting the judge and the jury decide, that this was an exercise in political, it was a political hit job, timed perfectly against the President of the United States. Sir, in the Florida case, in the records case, what happened ultimately in that case?
What happened ultimately in the case?
Yeah, the Mar-a-Lago records case.
I'm going to answer because I don't think this is covered by Judge Cannon's order of the, we move to dismiss that case pursuant to Justice Department policy.
No, the records case in Florida.
Against Donald Trump.
The records case in Mar-a-Lago, were you
I'm
ruled to be, what was the ruling in that?
That was Judge Cannon's ruling, and she ruled my appointment unlawful, and we sought to appeal that, and that appeal was pending at the time that we dismissed the cases.
So from the very beginning, were you ever confirmed by the United States Senate?
I have never been confirmed by the United States Senate. I will say that the history supporting my appointment is over 100 years old. Other special counsels.
But isn't there a
have been
statute on the
approved.
appointment? I mean, you have to be confirmed by the Senate. So I think that's kind of interesting. But I think the point is, from the very beginning, on the documents case and others, you weren't even lawfully appointed, and that's why Judge Cannon ruled the way that she did. And from the beginning, we talk about that you followed Department of Justice policy, you followed the facts, you followed the law, you followed the Constitution. That's what you have said all throughout this day, parroted by the Democrats, that you have done nothing wrong. But from the very beginning, you weren't even lawfully, and you can't even recall who swore you in. So as we sit here today, based on your testimony in the transcribed interview, can you tell us who swore you in as special prosecutor?
As I said, I know I took the oath of office. I don't recall who swore me in. What I can share with you.
I don't know, sir. Call me naive, but that's a milestone career move for you that you get to do this, and you don't remember the circumstances. I just find that a little bit odd. But here's the thing, and I'm going to wrap up quick. You're unconstitutionally appointed. You breached the 60-day rule, releasing this very partisan attack against the president right before the election. You tampered with evidence in the Mar-a-Lago case that you admitted to in court filings. You subpoenaed members of Congress and their phone records in violation of the Constitution, of current statutes. You didn't even let the court know that these were members of Congress. How are we to assume otherwise that this wasn't political? Because it absolutely was, sir. And I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from New York is recognized for 5 minutes.
I would caution my friend from South Carolina and others against jumping into bed with Judge Cannon, who's been rebuked repeatedly by the 11th Circuit because she is completely lawless. But let's go back to the actual evidence rather than all the procedural stuff about when you were sworn in or not. I don't blame you for not remembering that. You've been probably sworn in a dozen times. It doesn't jump out at you. I want to go back to the evidence, though, that Donald Trump knew that he was lying about the election. And I'd ask you to say, if you could, specifically, who gave evidence to you that supported your conclusion that he knew that he was lying?
That came from a number of sources. It came from staff in the White House who talked to him and told him that his fraud claims were not true. It came from staff on his campaign who told him that. It came from members of the Department of Justice. It came from state officials who, when he tried to press them to do things in contravention of their oath, they refused to. They asked him for evidence and his co-conspirators, and they never provided it. Over and over again, the people who had who were best situated to know how the elections were conducted in these states, he either avoided contacting them or disregarded the clear debunkings that were provided to him, such as by the Georgia Secretary of State.
Right, and I mean, that's a lot of evidence, but we know that his attorney general at the time also concluded, quote, he knew well that he lost the election, Bill Barr, and yet he incited a riot on January 6th, and 4 of the brave officers who defended the Capitol and defended my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are here today. Not a single Republican member of this committee has recognized them or thanked them for their service, and I would like to do so today. Thank you, gentlemen. Now, my colleague from California referred to a couple statements from your former colleagues in Penn and the Eastern District about your impeccable reputation as an apolitical career politician. As an alum of the Southern District of New York myself, I can tell you that many of my former colleagues also feel the same, and that's saying something coming from the SDNY to the EDNY, as you know. Mr. Smith, did you ever speak to President Biden about this case?
Never.
Did you ever receive orders or direction from President Biden or anyone else in the White House about this case?
No.
Did you ever receive any direction from the Attorney General Merrick Garland regarding how you should, whether or not you should charge this case?
No, I was given the independence to make that decision on my own.
An independent special counsel, exactly. I just want to point out to my colleagues who seem to think this is a politicized investigation that on February 10th, over a month, 2021, over a month after January 6th, Marco Rubio said the January 6th attack on the Capitol was far more dangerous than most realize, and we have a criminal justice system in place to address it. Who oversaw the Department of Justice on February 10th, 2021? Who was president?
February 10th, 2021. That would be Joe Biden.
So Marco Rubio wanted Joe Biden's Department of Justice to investigate Donald Trump and his January 6th insurrectionist. I want to ask you in my last few seconds, Mr. Smith, you're not the first special counsel to investigate Donald Trump. Special Counsel Mueller, also of impeccable integrity, concluded that the 2016 Trump campaign welcomed foreign interference from Russia and used it to help them. Donald Trump has made it a litmus test to be hired in this administration to say that the 2020 election was fraudulent, even though, as you have established, it was not. And now there are senior officials in this government who are responsible for protecting our elections, who are election deniers. Can you describe in a few seconds what your concerns are about the upcoming election based on your investigation and what we know today?
I believe political litmus tests are not proper for career prosecutors. I think my experience over 30 years as a prosecutor in the Department of Justice is having people who are not guided by party allegiance, but guided by experience. That's how you can trust the criminal justice system. It's the same way with our election system.
Gentleman's time has expired.
Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
Yeah. First of all, just a couple of comments.
There are probably 10 people on this committee who have more conversations with, 10, 15 people on this committee who have more conversations with Donald Trump than myself. But anybody who says that Donald Trump thought he won that election, that is just plain not true. No way, unless he's the best actor in the history of this building.
We agree.
Did Donald Trump believe?
Order.
That Donald Trump did not believe he lost that election. He just did. No way. And I think on January 6th, I can't believe there were any congressmen here who didn't think Joe Biden was going to be sworn in as president. So it was a riot, but it wasn't a threat to the future of the republic. Okay, now we should have posted up here a document for you to look at. Here we are. Okay. This is something we received with regard to Arctic frost. It's a list of about 70 names. I don't know whether or not you're familiar with the document.
I don't believe I'm familiar with this document.
Okay. The document contains just about every person who was higher up in the Donald Trump campaign. There's a little more emphasis on here on people involved in Wisconsin, but you're not familiar with the document.
I'm sorry, sir, what was your question?
Would you know what was in this document? These names, you familiar with them at all? They're under the impression that most of these people, maybe almost all of them, were subpoenaed by you at some time or other. That helps you.
Some of these names I am familiar with. Others I'm not familiar with, or I don't recall as I sit here now.
Okay. We'll eventually submit another question for you on this later on. From the time you were appointed as special counsel to your resignation in January 2025, did you ever have contact with the January 6th Select Committee?
I did not personally. When I became special counsel, I directed my deputy to ask the Select Committee to provide us whatever evidence they would provide us.
So you directed people to have direct contact?
I directed my deputy to make contact to collect evidence from them.
And that's J.P. Cooney?
J.P. Cooney, my deputy, correct.
Okay. Did you have any concern that the evidence collected by the Partisan Select Committee would be in any way tainted by politics?
I apologize, sir. I just couldn't hear
Okay.
you because of the door.
I'm sorry, we had people going through here. Did you have any concern that the evidence collected by the Partisan Select Committee would be in any way tainted by politics?
I intended to conduct an independent investigation, and my goal was to collect the evidence, assess it, and consider it with all the other evidence we would collect, and make an independent determination in my investigation separate from that investigation.
I'm going to go back and ask you something on that one before, because I think I know the answer. There's a person on that list by the name of Vicki McKenna who we believe did have her records subpoenaed. Are you familiar with that name at all?
As I sit here right now, I am not familiar with that name.
Okay, thank you. With regard to part of the documents that you received was with regard to Cassidy Hutchison, right?
We requested that they give us everything they were willing to give us. As I sit here now, I don't recall if specifically her information was in there, but I'm not denying that it was. It may well have been.
Okay, we'll go back. Your team issued subpoenas to various financial institutions, telecommunications providers, and conservative entities requesting communications between them and President Trump's campaign, right?
We did issue subpoenas for various sorts of information, correct.
Okay, and the bank records, you would say, or we could describe, were fairly broad, the request?
We issued subpoenas for certain bank records as part of our investigation, yes.
Okay. Shortly after you're appointed, you issued subpoenas to state and local officials for their communications with President Trump, is that correct? And his campaign.
As I sit here now, I'm trying to recall specifically which officials, but I know we issued a number of subpoenas in our investigation to understand the communications between President Trump and various entities, including state officials.
One final question.
One quick final question.
Yeah. Do you really believe that President Trump thinks he lost that election?
Our investigation following the facts and the law determined that...
No way, thank you, that's enough.
I have a unanimous
No way.
consent
Gentleman
request.
from New York is recognized for unanimous consent.
Actually, I have two. One is to article entitled, "With A.G. Bondi next to him, Trump says deranged Jack Smith must be investigated." And the other is a tweet from Marco Rubio. "There is nothing patriotic about what is occurring on Capitol Hill. This is third world style anti-American anarchy."
Without objection. Gentlelady from Texas is recognized.
Can I get an extra 33 seconds?
You get your full 5 minutes.
Well, okay, fine. It's curious because you've sat here all day, and thank you so much for showing up because this was something that you wanted to do. The Republicans wanted to make sure that you were hid in a room with no cameras because I was there. They didn't really want you out public because they were afraid of what you would say, which is that you could have proven your case because you are a career prosecutor who knows how to prosecute criminals. So just to be clear, today it seems like the Republicans have not really fought very much about whether or not Trump was guilty or not. In fact, their fight seems to be over whether or not you were authorized to prove their guilt. Do you recall a number of Republican members asking about whether or not your appointment was okay, even though we know that you've testified about the more than 100-year precedent that allowed for your appointment?
I was asked questions about that today, and our position, as we filed in our appeal, is that there was strong support for my appointment, including Supreme Court precedent directly on point.
Thank you so much. Additionally, everybody's been all gingerly here today, but I don't know why we're acting surprised that a man who had close to 90 allegations out of 4 different jurisdictions and ultimately ended up with 34 convictions after a jury was able to hear all the evidence would possibly be committing a criminal act on January 6th. In fact, considering the fact that we are now under the impression that he is violating people's due process rights, he is ignoring court orders, he's starting wars without congressional authority in contradiction to the Constitution. He's enriching himself to the tune of over $1.4 billion. He's shaking down electeds to draw maps that will help him stay in power because the Republicans don't understand that they swore an oath to the Constitution and that we are supposed to do checks and balances. He's also shaking down TV stations to get money. So why are we trying to pretend as if it is out of the realm for this particular man to commit the crime that he committed on January 6th? And frankly, the only reason he ran for president was to make sure that he would not be prosecuted, because I fully believe that you would have put him under the jail based on our long form conversation that we had. But according to your special counsel report on page 137, it states the department's view that the Constitution prohibits the continued indictment and prosecution of a president is categorical and does not turn on the gravity of the crimes charged, the strength of the government's proof, or the merits of the prosecution. And that, quote, but for Mr. Trump's election and imminent return to the presidency, the office assessed that the admissible evidence was sufficient to obtain and sustain a conviction at trial. In other words, Donald Trump ran for president, like I said, so he wouldn't have to spend the rest of his life in prison. The chairman and other members of this committee have spent all day attacking you and trying to rewrite the history of January 6th. But Mr. Jim Jordan, the chairman, failed to mention how he was running around the Capitol terrified by the possibility that all those insurrectionists would harm him. In fact, on page 97 of the deposition transcript, you mentioned how Mark Meadows, the president's chief of staff, quote unquote, never saw Jim Jordan so scared. The chairman also failed to mention that he was in direct contact with the White House in the days leading up to and on January 6th, which is why his toll records were subpoenaed by your office. Let me be clear, because they're trying to act like this is Democrats on Republicans, and I guess you are a covert Democrat that knew that he was going to try to steal an election before he tried to steal that election, and so therefore you were somehow put into place. I mean, the conspiracy theories make your head spin, but nevertheless, were you going to subpoena the toll records of every single Republican simply because they were a Republican?
No, we subpoenaed the toll records in the course of this investigation because they were relevant to our investigation.
Relevant. Oh, okay. All right, so that means something about facts. So let's talk about facts. Donald Trump lost to Joe Biden, yes or no?
That's correct.
Okay. In fact, 60 federal and state courts have found that there was no evidence of election fraud. Trump's own attorney general and vice president knew that he lost the election, but he still tried to steal the election by pressuring state officials, designing fake elector plans, nearly having Mike Pence hanged, and ultimately demanding that his supporters, quote, fight like hell, correct?
Correct.
We all saw it happen we all saw what happened once they reached the U.S. Capitol. As your report outlines, President Trump knew that he would incite violence at the Capitol that day. In fact, some of Trump's senior advisors were pushing for violence. For example, page 81 of the report details how co-conspirators number 2, John Eastman, tried to convince Mike Pence to break the law, stating that, quote, violence was necessary. So it isn't just Trump who is responsible for the death of multiple law enforcement officers and the injuries of thousands of people. A lot of Republican members of Congress are also responsible. 147 Republicans voted to overturn the 2020 election results, including multiple members currently serving on this committee, and I will yield.
Gentlelady yields. Gentleman from North Carolina is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Smith, we've heard a lot of information that's gone across this day as we've spent it here. We've heard disregard for the First Amendment at times. We've heard talk about solely seeking charges against Donald Trump, obviously targeting. We've talked about the amount of time and reasonable time frame. But I want to ask you for a moment, I can, about some troubling reports that a prosecutor from your office, Jay Bratt, implied to Stanley Woodward that the administration would look more favorably on a judgeship application if he managed to get his client, Walt Nauta, to cooperate against President Trump and to flip on him. And we know this because Stanley Woodward himself came forth with this information. And I guess my question for you, is this appropriate behavior for a special counsel's office to leverage attorneys' future career prospects?
Sir, I believe I can answer this question, even though it's regarding the Florida case, because we did filings on it, and I'm not referring to anything in the final report. And my answer to you, sir, is that when I was first notified about this issue, which was 9 months after it allegedly occurred, this is alleged to have occurred before I was even special counsel, what I did is I directed my deputies to look into it. We made sure the person involved self-referred it to OPR, and then we did a filing to the court. There was a motion by President Trump's attorneys. We responded and we laid out our position, and our position was that I did not believe that that allegation was credible. At best, it was a misunderstanding because the people in the room did not understand any threat to be made. Even Mr. Woodard, in his allegation, claimed it was only an inference. 9 months went by where we interacted with Mr. Woodard, in which we had no hearing of a complaint. When the complaint was raised for the first time, which was on the eve of that indictment being brought, it was raised in the guise of asking the court to delay the indictment while an investigation of it happened. So I take allegations of misconduct very seriously. I would not want any of my attorneys threatening anybody. Ultimately, when I looked at this, I did not credit it, and we responded with our position in court. But we also, it was clear that it was referred to the Office of Professional Responsibility, which is what good prosecutors do in that situation.
Well, again, to say that you didn't consider it to be credible, I guess we have the United States Associate Attorney General, Stanley Woodward, who claims that this threat was made to him, and I don't see what he would stand to gain from not telling the truth there. And I understand that you tasked 2 of your attorneys with investigating those statements made by Brat, but given the amount of publicity and the scrutiny that was surrounding this entire investigation, why in the world did you not initiate an independent investigation into these very alarming allegations?
Well, 2 points there. You stated that you don't, why would he do this? When he made the allegation, when this allegation first came from President Trump's attorneys and then days later from Mr. Woodard, he did ask for the case, the indictment, to be put off in result of this. So there was a thing he was asking for in result. And with respect to an independent investigation, that's exactly why you refer this to the Office of Professional Responsibility. They conduct an independent investigation outside of my office.
Well, let me just say, for 4 years, we watched the Biden administration politicize and weaponize the Department of Justice. From going after pro-life activists to spying on faithful Catholics, the Biden administration showed disregard for impartiality. And this blatant disregard was perhaps no clearer than in the targeting of President Trump. We've talked about it all throughout this day. They knew they couldn't beat him at the ballot box, so they pursued alternative options. And I'm grateful for this committee's efforts today to investigate this conduct to ensure accountability. And while elections are not akin to jury trials, I feel strongly that the results of the 2024 election sent a clear message about how the American people feel about these politicized charges. And I think they absolutely made a difference in those 24 elections. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Missouri.
Mr. Chair, I actually have a UC.
Gentleman is recognized.
This is, let's see, I asked unanimous consent to enter into the record this DOJ press release titled "Houston Man Sentenced to Prison for Assaulting Law Enforcement with Dangerous Weapons During January 6th Capitol Breach."
Without objection.
My second one is I asked unanimous consent to enter into the record an article titled "They Ransacked the U.S. Capitol and Want the Government to Pay Them Back," published by the Washington Post, January 21st, 2026.
Without objection. Gentleman from Missouri is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Smith, after indicting the leading Republican candidate for the President of the United States on August 1st, 2023, you asked for a trial date of January 2024, just 5 months later. During your deposition, you did not dispute that that would have given Trump's legal team just 5 months to review 13 million pages and thousands of hours of video evidence, working out to nearly 100,000 pages per day. Mr. Smith, you claim that you acted independently of the upcoming presidential election, and yet you pushed for a trial date ahead of the election. Why such a rush to charge and try and pursue conviction on President Trump?
I sought to move that case forward expeditiously because the public has a right to a speedy trial as well as a defendant. That is, there is Supreme Court precedent directly on point regarding that. I felt it was my duty to do that. I considered all options. I listened to
But isn't the right to a speedy trial primarily a right of the defendant? I honestly, before your arguments, I've never heard of the idea that the prosecution has a right to speed up a trial and require the defense to review 100,000 pages a day in order to get a trial in before an election. I've never heard of such a thing.
The Supreme Court, in at least, as I sit here now, 3 different cases, has stated pretty explicitly that the right to a speedy trial is the public's as well as the defendant's, and that
You were trying to get President tried, convicted, and hopefully in prison before Election Day. I understand, Mr. Smith. I think it's very telling that during your deposition you could not articulate any evidence that President Trump instructed individuals to unlawfully enter the Capitol on January 6, 2021. You claim that President Trump was, quote, responsible for the events at the Capitol on January 6th, which was not charged in your indictment. How do you reconcile that with the position of the department in other GA6 related cases that President Trump wasn't responsible for the events at the Capitol that day?
I'm not aware of the department taking a position that Donald Trump was not responsible. I think my recollection is the position that the department took in other cases is other defendants weren't not responsible themselves because of Donald Trump, that blaming him wasn't going to be a valid defense in their case. That's my recollection.
So on January 6, 2021, President Trump tweeted, quote, "Please support our Capitol Police and law enforcement. They are truly on the side of the country. Stay peaceful!" Exclamation point. This seems to show clearly that Trump urged his supporters at the Capitol to remain peaceful. Is that not right?
It's incorrect. First off, that
He didn't send that tweet?
he sent that tweet, but he sent that tweet only after being harangued by people to send something to stop the violence at the Capitol.
Okay, let's get the timeline straight then. At 1:55 p.m., there was a breach of the bike racks at the northeast perimeter. At 2:13, there were protesters breaching the Capitol, breaking into the Northwest Senate window and opening the doors. At 2:38, President Trump tweeted what I just quoted. That's 25 minutes between the Capitol building breach. Is 25 minutes, that's too slow? Would Trump have been guilty of insurrection if it were 15 minutes? Would 5 minutes? How quickly was he supposed to send that tweet to remain peaceful?
My recollection, as set forth in the indictment, is the timeline of when the attack of the Capitol happened, including the tweet that endangered Vice President Mike Pence's life, was different than what you stated.
So that tweet was after, of course, the riot had started. But President Trump also said, quote, "We've come to demand that Congress do the right thing and only count the electors who have been lawfully selected, lawfully selected. I know that everyone will soon be marching to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voice heard." Peacefully and patriotically, is that an incitement of a riot?
That is not.
Okay, so in November 2016, Hillary Clinton disputed, she for years called President Trump an illegitimate president. He knows he stole the election as recently as September 2019. Had there been a riot around the 2016 presidential election, would Hillary Clinton be guilty of inciting insurrection?
I'm not going to engage in hypotheticals. I will say that President Trump's conduct was without historical analog.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentleman yields
Mr.
back
Chair,
to
may I
the
have?
lady from Vermont.
Mr. Chair, I ask a unanimous consent to enter into the record the first superseding indictment for Capitol rioter and Oath Keeper Kelly Meggs, who brought weapons and armor with him to D.C. and wrote to a friend, "Trump said it's going to be wild, it's going to be wild. He wants us to make it wild." That's what he said. Okay. He's calling us to the Capitol and wants to make it wild. Sir, yes, sir, gentlemen, we're heading to D.C. to pack our shit. And Mr. Chair, I have a unanimous consent request. I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record this superseding indictment filed the Department of Justice on August 27th, 2024, that outlines how Donald Trump, among other felonies, conspired to defraud the United States in his effort to fraudulently and violently overturn the results of the 2020 election that he lost.
Without objection, the gentleman from Washington is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, 5 hours later, here we are. One of the benefits of being a freshman member of this committee with the least amount of seniority is you get the benefit of getting everybody else listen to them talk first. I'm going to start by saying that starting out, I was not real familiar with this issue. In fact, when the chairman of the committee told me we had Jack Smith coming in, my first response privately was, "Who's Jack Smith?" And I say that because my wife and I have 5 young children. We don't have cable television, and by the time we get them to bed, we're either watching Netflix or better yet, reading books. So when I came to this, I wanted to take a real honest look at what had happened. And I should also say that, a little about what I think happened on January 6th. I think, like most Americans, think Donald Trump was cruising to re-election in 2019 with the booming economy, and then COVID happened, George Floyd happened, a lot of things got changed. But I do think in those circumstances that Joe Biden won that election. I also think, like most Americans, that January 6th was a terrible attack. I think it was a terrible riot. I don't believe it was an insurrection determined to overthrow the government, but I think it was an important day for America. I also think, like most Americans, it was extremely unfortunate for this country that the January 6th committee was a partisan event, and there was not an ability to put folks from both sides of their choosing on that committee, so there could have been a full and honest debate for the American people. I think it was politically motivated, what Nancy Pelosi did with that committee. And so when I came to this issue with a fresh look, with those kind of my priors and what I got into, what I wanted to find was that in the goodness of the rule of law, that you as an investigator carried this out to the highest ideals, and it was not a politically motivated investigation. And I think a lot about that in the 250th anniversary of America. I think about what the framers would have thought of this and the state of the rule of law, what makes America special with checks and balances, what keeps us from being a banana republic. But what I was disappointed to find when I looked into this issue and how you conducted the investigation was that it was a politically motivated investigation determined to influence the election in 2024. And I say that, and the thing I cannot get around as I look into this is the timing that you fought for in when the court cases would be held. Now, to my understanding, the Department of Justice says you're not supposed to have politically motivated timing of a court case. But when I look at the timing that you pushed for and the jurisdictions between New York and Florida, and with all the other things that President Trump was engaged in, that looks very politically motivated to me, and I think to the American people as they take a look at this issue to try to influence the election. So that's where I come down after today's hearing, my own independent investigation, and your commentary. I sincerely hope that conclusion is incorrect, but that's the conclusion I come to, and I think when most people, if they look through this not through a partisan lens, I think they'll come to, they will not be able to get around the fact of how you timed these elections. I think that's really to the detriment of the American Republic and for where we sit today as a country. And so my one question for you, Jack Smith, is are you familiar with the Vietnamese city of Bến Tre?
I am not.
Well, Bến Tre was the site of an intense firefight in early 1968. And after that intense firefight that destroyed the town, a reporter from the Associated Press interviewed a U.S. major, and he said it became necessary to destroy the village in order to save it. Now, historians do not know what was the name of that U.S. major, but I think when they look back at your engagement with our democracy in this republic, they will remember your name. And when it comes to the rule of law that is the foundation of this country, they will remember someone who helped destroy the rule of law. And with that, Mr. President,
Gentleman,
Mr.
yield for a
Chairman,
question.
I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Ranking member is recognized for.
Oh, I was wondering whether you would yield for a question.
I will defer on that. I'll just yield to the chairman.
Gentleman yields back. I think the gentleman.
Yeah, then I've just got one UC request, Mr.
Go to
Chairman.
you, and then I think the gentleman from Wisconsin has a request.
Okay, this is from Politico, October 20th, 2023. Kenneth Chesbrough, an architect of Trump's fake elector scheme, pleads guilty to the offense in Georgia.
Without objection. Gentleman from Wisconsin, recognized.
I just have to clarify something I said.
Yep.
I've talked to Donald Trump over a period of time. Donald Trump is 100% certain he won that election. There is 0% chance that he believes he lost. And I say that based on private conversations, which just, boom. So
Okay.
I want to clarify that.
Noted for the record. We appreciate that. This concludes today's hearing. We thank.
Mr. Chairman, for me, I just have one final question for you. That it begins really just as a point of order.
Okay.
As you know,
point of order, or is it a point of order or a question?
it's a point of order leading to a question. If that's all
Wow,
right.
that's innovative.
Okay, so it's
I don't think that's an order, but because I'm such a nice guy,
well, I
I'm going
appreciate
to let
that.
you state
it's
whatever you're
straightforward and
stating.
it's in good faith.
Okay,
Look,
in good faith.
Because of nothing you've done and nothing that I've done, Jack Smith has not been able to answer the vast majority of questions about what's in Volume 2 of his special counsel report relating to the stolen documents. Now, it's been said that the judicial order that Eileen Cannon imposed will be lifted in February. And so I guess my point of order is, do we intend to bring him back so he can answer questions about Volume 2 and about the stolen documents case?
We'll take it under advisement.
Okay, well then,
we're going to see what the court decides to do, frankly.
I got you. Well, then in that event, I've got the signatures of every member on our side who are writing to notify you of our intent to call him to testify in continuation of this hearing to answer all of the unanswered questions about the second half of his
That will
work.
certainly factor in tremendously when we make our decision.
Okay, because we have a right on the minority day to have a witness, and we will exercise that right.
You're going to call him back again?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
So, and
We'll see.
yeah, okay. I'm citing Rule 11, Clause 2J.
We look forward to seeing the letter, and we'll find out.
Thank you.
We'll take it all under advisement, as we said. That concludes today's hearing. We thank the witness for appearing before the committee today. Without objection, all members will have 5 legislative days to submit additional written questions for the witness or additional materials for the record. Without objection, the hearing is adjourned.
Awesome. Here's
That is where we leave it. What an interesting day. Can you hear me, Nick? I want to make sure you can hear me.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. You're a little faint, but I might find a way to turn that up. A long session. Poor Jack Smith having to sit there for a very long time listening to the performances by the Republicans. And, you know, it just becomes theater at the end of the day. And I'm sure everyone who's watching this, and there are maybe like 10,000 people watching on this stream today, you know, it just strikes you as performative and unserious, because clearly they don't care that the president of the United States committed any crimes. They didn't even ask any legitimate questions around that.
Yeah, it was very clear that this was not about ascertaining any sort of truth around criminality for Donald Trump. It was around questioning validity and attacking Jack Smith's personality and the way that he conducted an investigation, because they're mad that they got subpoenaed. It's not lost on me that the criminals are the ones asking the questions and saying that it's rude that you subpoenaed me and didn't let me know that my
Sorry, I'm not sure what's going on there.
phone records and things
Sorry,
like
I
that.
don't know if you can hear that. 1 second.
Can you hear me at all?
We definitely don't have to watch it again. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Sorry about that. I just had another
worries.
track showing up, but I'm here. Listen, I didn't get the last part of what you said. Did you mind repeating it for me?
Yeah, I find it really revealing, and we all do, and we all know that they're criminals. I find it really fascinating that the criminals are the ones asking all the questions and getting mad that their phone records were subpoenaed and they didn't know about it. Well, of course your phone records were subpoenaed without you knowing about it. And he was very clear on when Jack Smith could get answers into these questions. He was very clear on things like, I didn't get any of the information that you spoke about in those phone calls. It was just, you called this person at this time, it lasted this long, and just metadata around the phone. And he was very clear, and it felt more like a grievance, getting grievances off their chest as the Republicans, compared to Democrats who were actually trying to get information and showcase the truth. Like, Jack Smith can't talk about the classified documents case still until February. And I'm glad that they got, at the end, Jamie Raskin got all that in, saying that they're going to have Jack Smith back because we deserve to know what's in Volume 2.
I think it's very telling what you're saying. Look, they weren't allowed to talk about everything that they could have talked about today, especially with the Mar-a-Lago case. And that which they were allowed to talk about was centered around all these Republican grievances around, you know, should they have their calls tracked? Well, of course, if you're suspected in a crime, and of course, if you're under investigation in a crime, you're going to have your phone records requested. I mean, it's natural for them to do that. So it seems ridiculous that their defense against an insurrection, their defense against the overthrow of the people's will is you shouldn't have been tracking our phones. You know, that is what it comes down to. They are not actually arguing any details of what Donald Trump did. No one was questioning whether he actually encouraged that insurrection, and they might call it a riot. They can call it whatever they want, but you know, it is what it is. And no one was questioning that. No one was questioning the classified documents either. They were just all arguing about, well, you shouldn't have raided his Mar-a-Lago residence. So, is this true for any president now? I mean, going forward, can any president just take any documents they want, and as long as they have it in their private club or their private home, they won't be raided because they've stolen all these documents? I mean, it makes no sense because they've been going after all these other officials which have documents in their homes, like Joe Biden, and who's the current guy, the former NSA advisor. Yeah, so Bolton. So it's like it's crazy. It doesn't make any sense that they're choosing to argue these points where the president is allowed to do these things, or this president is allowed to do these things, but other presidents are not allowed to do these things.
Yeah, and that's always how it's sort of been, is we get to do it, you don't. That's their whole system, is freedom for us, or freedom for me, but not for thee. That's what they want. They want freedom for them to be able to do whatever criming they want. Like we can't really call it anything else, is they're covering up for criminal activity. Jim Jordan is a protector of abusers. He held back information around the Ohio State University abuse cases for the wrestlers. He is a protector of abusers. He has a history of protecting abusers and keeping things down for victims. And that's exactly what he's doing. He spent that hearing being a protector of abusers and saying Donald Trump gets to do whatever he wants. You're at fault because, like we said, it's just grievance. Fascism is grievance.
And missing from all of
political movement.
And the testimony, when you actually stripped it down, he's a soft speaker, and when he wasn't being harassed by the GOP commentators there, it's clear that he said some really dramatic things. He said the president was, criminally liable for all these laws and all these crimes that had been committed. And I want to play you one clip from what he said earlier on about no one being above the law, which is just, obvious, I guess, to some of us, but maybe not to everybody. Let's take a listen to Jack Smith from earlier on.
As I testify before the committee today, I want to be clear. I stand by my decisions as special counsel, including the decision to bring charges against President Trump. Our investigation developed proof beyond a reasonable doubt that President Trump engaged in criminal activity. If asked whether to prosecute a former president based on the same facts today, I would do so regardless of whether that president was a Democrat or a Republican. No one should be above the law in this country, and the law required that he be held to account, so that is what I did. To have done otherwise on the facts of these cases would have been to shirk my duties as a prosecutor and as a public servant, of which I had no intention of doing. I remain grateful for the counsel, judgment, and advice of my team.
I mean, that's just pretty clear. This is the current president of the United States that this very dedicated special prosecutor had found on a number of cases that this guy, Donald Trump, is criminally liable. And they had strong cases they were going to take in front of courts and convince those courts. And he kept repeating, these were very defendable, strong cases. And this, Republicans basically completely rode over all those arguments and simply steamrolled him and kept asking him about, these other things, these phone records, about the timing. Why did he insist on a speedy trial? I mean, those are legal things that he did. It's not like he was breaking the law. And at the end there, one of them was even talking about him, actually be impeding the rule of law when he's the guy who's defending the rule of law. It's kind of stunning that we were listening to that kind of commentary.
Yeah, it also shows a real dichotomy between what's going on in the U.S. between people who actually want to serve the public and the Republicans, and because the Republicans don't want to serve the public. There was nothing gained from this hearing on the Republican side. They used it all for performative gaslighting and for grievance policies, which is all they do. It was an attempt to blame Donald or Joe Biden, an attempt to blame Merrick Garland,
Jack Smith,
attempt to make all of that sound culpable. Yet Jack Smith sat under oath and said, I believed as a prosecutor that we had enough evidence and we could have proven our case beyond a reasonable doubt. He said that under oath.
Yeah.
The Republicans asking questions were not under oath. They got to lie as freely as they wanted to. And Jack Smith never got the opportunities to actually answer the questions that were being asked, because giving a round robin of 5 minutes and then expecting that to include in that 5 minutes the responses is not doing justice to the American people. It is not. It is a show hearing. It is not a hearing. It is not about information. The Democrats were there to get information. Vermont Rep Becca
By call, I think, or something.
Allen,
Yeah, I think it's by call.
she had some incredible questions.
Yeah, let's listen
and
to some of
Jasmine
those, because
Crockett
there were
had
some really
terrific
good clips
questions.
there.
Yeah.
Let's listen to this one where she talks about Judge Cannon here. And maybe you want to set this up a little bit, because she's referring specifically to the gag order on him being able to answer all the important questions related to the Mar-a-Lago case. I'd have to just quickly mind something here because it's in the wrong format for me here. But go ahead, just talk a little bit more about this if you want to just set it up for a second here. Otherwise, I'll just go for it.
Yeah, Vermont Representative Becca Ballant was super level-headed during her questioning, and she brought up a really good set of questions around Judge Eileen Cannon and the gag order that is still in place, we know, until February at this point. But her question was why? Why is this gag order even still existing? Does the conflict with which this gag order is is that conflict real? Does that conflict exist anymore? And the answer to that is no. The conflict didn't exist, and he said that. And so I'm really glad she brought it up.
Yeah, let's take a listen.
Part
Smith,
2 is
I want
important.
to discuss volume 2 of your report, which summarizes the findings of your investigation into President Trump's hoarding of classified documents at Mar-a-Lago and his efforts to obstruct the FBI's investigation. Mr. Smith, is it generally the practice for a special counsel's report to be made public to the American people?
I want to say first, I'm limited what I can say about Volume 2 because of Judge Cannon's order. I can say generally that with respect to special counsels, there are regulations that direct a special counsel to draft a report. Whether that report becomes public is determined, the Attorney General has the authority to determine that.
To the best of your knowledge, was Special Counsel Mueller's report made public in full?
I know it was made public. I'm not sure if it was made public in full.
What about Special Counsel Herr's report?
My recollection is his report was made public in full. I believe that's correct.
And Special Counsel Weiss's report?
I do not know.
Okay. Now, I understand that the district judge, Aileen Cannon, the Trump appointee who oversaw the case in Florida, issued a gag order that prevents you from discussing any parts of the classified documents investigation that is not already public. I understand that, including your findings laid out in Volume 2 of that report. Am I correct that the reason your report is not available in full to the public is because of this gag order?
I wrote a report. The Attorney General, it was submitted to him. I understand generally that there's been litigation about whether this report would be public or not. I have not been a party to that litigation. I just know that there is an order, and I know the current Department of Justice has interpreted that order in a way that I cannot speak about anything that could possibly be in that report and its findings.
And when Judge Cannon issued that gag order, she cited pending cases against Trump's co-defendants. Is that correct?
I'm sorry?
When Judge Cannon issued the gag order, she cited pending cases against Trump's co-defendants. Is that correct?
That's my recollection.
Are those cases still pending?
No, they're not.
No, they're not. So there is no reason, from where I sit, for this important information to be not made public.
Such an interesting clip, and I'm going to bring in Dean Blundell, who joins us. Hey, Dean, how are you?
What's up, Dean?
Hi, yeah,
Bored
can
out
hear-
of my mind watching this. You guys are great.
It's a little
This has
tough.
been, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, listen, kids, just a quick note. Hi, Nick. How you doing, buddy? Great to see you as always. Just a quick little pro tip. Fuck, that beard is really coming in too. Just a
Thanks,
little
here.
pro tip.
I'll even.
You comb it. Yeah, you got the
he's
full
got the whole
beard brush.
beard comb. That's very nice.
I can't do that. My son has more facial hair than me. But listen, kids, if you're watching this, just a life lesson here. Never be any one of these people. Oh my God, they're boring. Can you imagine having any of these people at a fucking dinner party? Like,
Who are you talking? Are you talking about the
Jamie
Republicans
Raskin?
or Jamie Raskin? Everybody.
I'm talking about the like. Listen, we know what he's saying. I mean, we read it 3 weeks ago when he gave his first deposition behind closed doors. I mean, nothing is being revealed, and what was just said there is the most revealing aspect of this. Is that the pending case is that Aileen Cannon, the sycophantic Trump judge, has strapped this report down with, don't exist anymore. That's been the biggest bombshell. So I'm glad that I'm here for that. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, listen, I mean, Jack Smith also seems like a little kind of boring as well. I mean, he's very quiet. He's very particular. He's very process-driven. He certainly doesn't seem like the kind of guy who's subverting the rule of law or taking orders from Joe Biden or anybody else to subvert the law. But the rest of them are just have their blinders on because they are convinced that President Trump did nothing wrong. And I mean, despite this guy who's a celebrated career prosecutor sitting there and repeatedly saying, I've got evidence. I had a good case. I would have, we believe he was criminally liable. We would have won these. Despite all of that, they're all still arguing about, why were their phone records really seized? It seems so, so out of step with what the truth is. But that's not news. I mean, that's just the way they are.
But have you not been laughing at every assertion that they're trying like so desperately to find, the part of the process was that you had to swear an oath, but you were made to do that twice. What's up with that, fella? Right. Then Mike Nels, who's on his way out because he can't stand the mega heat. He's like, well, I just heard you did some bad things, and it sounds like it wasn't good. Anyway, over to you, Mr. Chairman. This is kangaroo court. I mean, fucking, it's like a fourth grade gym teacher trying to debate Albert fucking Einstein. But there's a whole bunch of fourth grade teachers on the GOP side.
You mean a college wrestling coach who's accused of sexual assault and hiding it?
Jim JYM Jordan, yeah.
Jim Bag Jordan over there. Fuck that guy.
There was not even a single. I mean, I could tell the frustration amongst some of the Democrats who were just sitting there going, "What the hell?" I mean, you guys. I thought Swalwell captured this quite well when he said, when these doors are closed and it's just us talking, you hate this president. You absolutely hate everything he's doing. But now, when you're in public and you're performing, now you're suddenly criticizing him. Which is, I thought it was very, very valid at the end of the day. This is a Republican Party that just is refusing to believe in the truth, and a prosecutor there who had some very important points to make about how guilty this president is of criming before, but he also said he's guilty of criming right now. I don't know what happened to Dean there. Maybe he'll join us in just a second. But, that to me was also missed, that whole, the fact that this was a crime. Oh, I lost both of you. Now it's just me. There's Dean again. It's like a round robin here. I don't know who's what time.
This new software kicks me off all the time. Sorry.
Is it really? It shouldn't kick you off, though. Anyway, I'm sorry about that.
Every
I apologize.
time so far. No, not your fault. It's the software. It's
Maybe I've got to learn how to do it, use it better. I don't know. It is complicated.
I'm back.
Anyway,
That's
hi,
all right.
Nick.
We're
Everyone's
back.
back.
Yeah.
Everyone's back.
We're all back.
I don't even remember what I was talking about there. What was I talking about? I was saying I lost it.
You're talking about how fucking boring
Swalwell.
Jack Smith was, but how compelling Swalwell was when he said, hey, listen, dude, you're right on the money, because when these doors are closed, all my GOP counterparts are like, the fucking president's insane, Jack Smith's the best. And the second he shows up, and I think, it's something that every American knows, right? Like, if anybody's watching what's going on in this hearing with Jack Smith this morning, who's performative, who isn't. And I think that's the biggest shame, is watching a bunch of grown-ass fucking adults try to point to Jack Smith and go, well, we have a problem with your process. We have a problem with your intentions. We have a problem with things that we don't know anything about. And they're all literally performing for a fucking audience of one dude, right? That's
Yeah,
the shitty
and I think
part.
the thing that I was trying to get at was that he still said that the president is still criming right now. You know, he's not saying it happened in the past. He says he's a career prosecutor, and he's saying the president is currently committing crimes, and that the entire future of the democratic system is at stake here because of these crimes that he keeps committing and that the GOP keeps committing. And that's also is so fundamentally unbelievable to hear on Capitol Hill. And the ruling party is just sitting there going, "Hey, but why did you get our records? You know, what about our records? Why were you snooping on our phones?" Well, snooping on your phones because you're committing crimes. Of course they're going to snoop on your phones.
It's called
My
a fucking
response is,
investigation,
Don't
Jim.
be a fucking criminal. Like, if you don't want your phone investigated like that, Republicans, don't commit an insurrection. Don't attack the fucking Capitol.
Yeah.
Don't rub feces all over the fucking White House. Don't go around screaming, "Hang Mike Pence," or "Hang Nancy Pelosi," or whatever bullshit you did, or raise the Confederate flag over the White House. Don't do that shit, and your phones won't get seized or your records.
Yeah, my
found,
test always
or-
is what if the other party does it? What if the Democrats had done this, and a bunch of people had walked in there and stormed Capitol Hill and done all these things you just mentioned? What would have happened to those people? They would have been gunned down in the way that, you know, we've seen Renee Good get gunned down. That's their response to protest. But when these guys storm into the Capitol Hill because they're white GOPers, then it's okay. It's okay for them to do it.
That's exactly what he's saying. Yeah.
My question always is right now is like, if Wajahat Ali were to walk into the White House or Congress and do the same thing with a group of people that were mixed color, white, brown, every, black, in the middle, anywhere, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Like, if Wajahat Ali led a protest into the Capitol right now, they would call it an insurrection and they would kill him.
Oh yeah, he'd be
But if
dead.
it was a white guy, again, with white guys with guns, can do whatever the fuck we want. We get to do whatever the fuck we want in this country. If you're a white dude with a gun and you believe in Christian nationalism. But if you're not, you're going to get killed. That's the message they're sending. Like, I hate to say it about Wash because I love the dude, but if he were to do that, that's what it would do. That's what the Republican Party is hate and white supremacy.
And let's just bear that out with what's going on in Minnesota, and we get visuals of that every day. They're just hunting people of color. I mean, they're trying to find a way to frame them with crimes, and you know, and
they're going door to door now.
Yeah, door to door, and that's really, you know, we sit here and we talk about what Donald Trump did during the insurrection, but you know, the people that are going door to door attacking migrants, a lot of them were in that fucking crowd of miscreants. A lot of them have been hired by Donald Trump to be part of ICE. So
that is
you
such
want
a good
connection
point.
between today's testimony, what's going on in Minnesota, that Donald Trump not done what he had done and pardoned every single one of those miscreant, hillbilly, fucking violent militia pricks, we wouldn't probably have these people in Minnesota going door to door attacking migrants, and that is a fucking fact.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, you've got the murderer of Renee Good, who's not being investigated. There's no investigation in her murder. The guy who shot her in the face 3 times is getting away with it. And she's being investigated, and her partner is being investigated, and the city's mayor is being subpoenaed, and the governor is being investigated. That's where we're at right now in America, where everybody who does the wrong thing gets away with it, if they're white.
Not only was she murdered, not only was she shot 3 times, but it's come out from other information that she was alive after it, and they did not allow medical care to be rendered to her.
I'd not heard that.
They prevented a physician from coming to her. Like, she wasn't dead immediately. That is a fucking human rights violation. That is like, they've taken it so fucking far, and nobody has said enough.
Well, everyone's saying enough, but
everyone is saying enough, but nobody is able to stop them, because those who are actually able to stop it, Congress, state AGs, Democratic governors, red governors who don't go along with it. If you all just came together with one big fucking message and said, every time this happens, we start prosecutions immediately, it would stop. It would stop. Hold them accountable in real fucking times. We don't have to wait for Nuremberg 2.0. Let's stop pretending that we have to wait. Start fucking doing it now.
But it's not going to be the institutions that do this. You know that. It's not going to be.
No, it should be us.
It's the people that have to stand up.
It has to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Because
really
it
funny.
should.
There's a visual, because this is, listen, this is going to sound like a racist conversation, but it's not inherently, it will be. But I watched a white guy standing on the street corner with a shotgun underneath his elbow, just sitting there with his hand in Minnesota. And they stopped and asked him, not sure if he saw that. They're like, what are you doing? Some news reporter, he's like, hey, listen, I'm here protecting my community from ICE and Donald Trump. And he's like, well, how many of you are there? He's like, there's 30 of us around the neighborhood. We've all got guns. If that isn't, a menu for civil war at this point, and we haven't seen it yet, but in the big scheme of things, if we want to talk about escalation, and if you want to talk about, well, what happens if this, if that, if this, we're at that moment right now where, white men and women in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, are arming themselves, standing on street corners like crossing guards, waiting for ICE to come down the street with whistles. And it's not just 30 in that community, it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of white people. And you know what, to Nick's point, they're protecting their neighbors who are targets of ICE. And this is the danger, and I said this a year ago when Donald Trump rose to power again, inexplicably, is that I think we're going to get to a point, and Ruth Ben-Ghiat, who does an incredible job writing this stuff, she came out and talked about this as well, is that we're going to get to the point where their intended goal is not going to be their intended goal, and he's going to draw the ire of democratic, armed white America that truly do believe in 2A, and that's when the fur will fly. And we're starting to see that now, to your point. And you know what? For all of the terrible crimes against humanity, we've seen that little person, Greg Bovino, commit against the people of Illinois, Minnesota, Los Angeles, and watching that little fucking ferret. He's 5'3", by the way.
Yeah, it looks ridiculous.
Get dressed up in literally old school Nazi regalia like Goebbels used to do when he would give the Horst speech or the Storm speech with the lapel pins and the buttoned up and the fucking tight haircut, surrounded by other guys that were part of the J6 militia, surrounded by Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, telling people to get the fuck out of the streets. Yesterday threw a fucking smoke bomb in a crowd of people just standing there watching these pricks roll up and down the street because they thought they'd big dick everybody for the perceptual video. And I defy you, I dare you to find any dissimilarities between the visuals we have of Nazi-dressed hardcore assholes running through Munich or Berlin at a pre-war or current war rally and the exact same visuals we're seeing coming out of Minnesota right now.
It looks the same. It is the same. And we talk about the sliding scale of justice here. Jack Smith is more likely to go to jail than Bovino is, and more likely to go to jail than Donald Trump is for their crimes. And this is, this is just what's happening. Everyone who's done investigations into Donald Trump is now being investigated. They are now the criminals, even though it's very clear there was no criminal intent. They were just following the law. But this is where we're heading. And that is also Nazi Germany. There's very little to differentiate what's happening now in the United States with what's happened in every major dictatorship in the world as it's backslid into a dictatorship. We've now seen this happen to the United States. We're no longer operating in a place where rule of law happens. The rule of law happens if you have a gun and you're standing on your doorstep and you're telling ICE to get the fuck out of your neighborhood. That is the new rule of law, because you can't trust the government to do the things it needs to do.
I'll say this. I don't think that's a new rule of law in the U.S. I think that is the rule of law in the U.S. is who has the bigger gun waves it around the most. And that's sort of just US policy. The thing I think we really need to be careful in all of this is this is what the early stages of a civil war or a war in general look like. Like you see citizenry becoming more and more armed to protect themselves and their neighborhoods. You see cities and towns become desolate in areas and not recover from when, say, National Guard is still stationed in Washington, D.C., and there's no food vendors anymore. That is closing down the public sphere and putting militarization. We are in the early stages of a civil war. We have been for a long time. It's just not a hot one in many ways. Yes, it is kind of hot because they keep killing us. However, our side, for the 400 million guns that are in America, that are more than the number of citizens in America, the fact that no ICE agent has been shot in these raids by a person who is protecting their home
Standing their ground.
astounds me and makes me really proud of the American citizens who are withholding the violence that ICE is seeking.
Yeah,
We
that's
are
important.
the arbiter of the truth. We need to withhold the violence because, again, peaceful resistance wins every single time. The longer you can get peaceful resistance, the more people get activated in the peaceful resistance, you will win. It might take us a while to win, but as long as we continue to do it, we can. My thing is I am afraid for my friends. I'm afraid for my friends who are in minority communities, like my trans friends, who they will be the first ones hurt in this violence. I am afraid for my friends who are gay because they will be one of the first ones hurt in this type of violence. For others who have disabilities like I do, we will be the first ones targeted in these types of violence because we're the easy targets. So we need to, as a group, be really careful about how we talk about violence and escalation. I am glad that groups are protecting their neighborhoods. I am glad that the Black Panthers are out protecting Philadelphia and showing solidarity. I'm glad that white people are finally coming out showing, hey, we are armed. But being armed is the escalation point. Getting to the point where we have to live armed just to feel some semblance of safety, you are no longer free if you have to carry a gun everywhere you go to protect your life so that you don't die in the course of getting groceries.
I mean, I've lived in a country like that. I know exactly what that's like. And you're not free. And what America's giving up for this ridiculous president is that feeling of freedom, that feeling of being able to walk down a street and not feel like you're about to be attacked, not about to be slaughtered by someone who's going to hijack your car at the next traffic light. And the restraint is great, Nick. I love the restraint. I think it's great that people haven't done violence because the ICE agents and because Trump wants it. But there's too much restraint as well in not standing up to Donald Trump. I mean, it stuns me how Mark Carney's got it right, how the Europeans have started getting it right, that standing up to Donald Trump works and works every single time, that he is not got the strength to carry through his convictions. And I think American people need to really digest that. And I'm not saying do something stupid. I'm just saying really push back on absolutely everything because he will back down at some point.
Yeah, like you don't have to get violent to stop Donald Trump in his tracks. Again, state AGs, arrest the people who are committing crimes have your state arrest these people and charge them in real time. We don't need to wait until millions of people get murdered or die in a war or we start World War III because although Trump said he's not going to invade Greenland, my belief in what Trump says and the things that happen because of the people around him are very different. I believe Trump doesn't give a shit about Greenland, but the tech bros and the tech fascists sure as fuck do, and they want it.
Yeah.
And they don't care what Donald Trump wants because he gonna be dead in a couple months, most likely. He's an old man who's not doing very well. And We need to
He's their
maintain the
mark.
restraint
Yeah,
we
yeah.
can. We have to maintain the restraint on our side. There's a difference between being peaceful and being weak. I am not a weak person. You could go to fucking Congress and talk like me. It would be okay if the Democrats were to go on Capitol Hill and stand there and sit there and talk exactly like I do, or like Lev Parnas does, and just say it every fucking day over and over and over and over again and just talk about the things. Because if we were to attack him daily and take the narrative, flood the zone, use their own tactic, flood the zone, which I think is going to be really cool. Getting off topic for a second, I got a message while we were on the show that Substack is starting a TV app.
Yeah, I know
that
they
can
launched
have,
right
like,
today.
paid,
You're in
which
TV
is
officially, everybody.
which
Hello,
is
TV
fucking
viewers.
cool because now we might be on TV. Like
Yeah.
that just boosts our message. We have to be out here talking about this, flooding the zone every day, putting out the images and the videos from Jasmine Crockett, from Rep. God,
Beck
I
Hall.
forget her name.
Beck Hall.
Becca. I don't remember her last name. I'm sorry. The Vermont representative. Like, we get these messages out there, and if we just keep doing it on repeat, they'll get the message to start doing it too, because then they'll be afraid to lose their jobs. We have to do this the most democratic way possible. Like, if we want to win a democracy, we can't become authoritarians ourselves. Like, we can't
No.
become authoritarians to win democracy back.
Her name is Becca
Democracy
Balint,
gone at
actually.
that.
Balint. Balint? Is that right? Is that right?
Let me look up.
I'm looking it up there. And I think it's Rebecca Balint.
You bring up a good
Balint or
point.
Balint? Yeah.
You bring up a good point. And there's a quote about that. Be careful when you fight monsters, you don't become one yourself. But I think that there's a middle ground here where you don't become like them, but you absolutely employ the same strong arm mentality as them, but you do it to protect your community, you do it to protect the marginalized, you do it to protect democracy. And I think that, and we're heading to Greenland in a couple of days. Malcolm just landed. Because I think that showing up physically is going to start becoming much more important. And I know that the goal for the Trump regime, like, it's physically important that we show up for our allies, but I think it's really important that Americans physically show up for America. And it's not something that you can do, once a week or once a month on a weekend, where you've got a scheduled No Kings rally. Those are great. Those are great. They benefit few, but they're great. It's got to be this sustained pressure, to your point, that you don't capitulate to monster behavior, but what you do is you don't fucking move. I'm reminded of the movie Gandhi. Ben Kingsley was great. Not for a second did I think he was from India, by the way, but either way, it was Ben Kingsley. And I'm reminded of the movie Gandhi, and they walk down to the salt mine, and the British are going to beat them, and they're like, that's okay. There's lots of us. And it was wave after wave of nonviolent protests that ended up sparking a massive fucking revolution around the country, a very peaceful, sorry, that's the pooch, very peaceful revolution. And none of that would have been possible without really seriously coordinating with your community and that community of people who said, listen, we are committed to a nonviolent solution here. Gandhi starved himself. Gandhi also slept with 12-year-old girls and tried to prove that he was a man of will. So he was weird. But I'm talking about the actual effort that goes into showing up, not being like them, not having monster type behavior, and allowing yourself to take a couple of licks because it's what the world needs to see. Do we need to see this? What's going on in Minnesota? No, we need to see the pushback of what's going on in Minnesota. And what that is going to be different in every community. But my God, we're at that point now, to Nick's point, to your point, Zev, where civil war and that escalation is starting to become more of a factor, in how we're projecting how this ends, right? Because people are showing up with guns. Yeah.
But also, in South Africa, when we went through this process, it was remarkable how much restraint there was and how much awareness of how brave you had to be in many ways to go and protest the things you were, unhappy with, but how much there was a real sense of respect on both sides of, if this blows up, it blows up for everybody. And so in South Africa, when those protests were happening, and you talk about Gandhi, Nelson Mandela as well, was a remarkable leader in doing a peaceful transition of power. And people always say to me, there are no examples of dictatorships that have turned into democracies through peaceful means. And that's not true. And South Africa is one of those examples where you can absolutely transition a country from a despotic, horrible, racist police state into a democratic country peacefully, because the will of the people takes it there. And it doesn't have to be through the election process. There are ways of just being peaceful, protesting at the right things. At the end of the day, the target here is not the ICE agents. The target here is Donald Trump and the regime. They need to leave, because what we heard from Jack Smith today is that he illegally trying to overthrow the will of the people. What we heard from him today is that he stole secrets from the American people and was likely, he didn't say this, but it was likely selling them to our enemies around the world, and that he's continually criming over and over again. That is not going to change until people stop him, and it's going to take the people to do it.
Yeah, and it takes organization. Like, we're seeing that happen. There's indivisible chapters all over the country. There's 5051 groups all over the country. There's people who are actively doing and going out and putting in the efforts daily to be this sustained movement. And we need more of it. We just need more of it, because the more people who are out, the more it'll work and the more that will change. What this also means is, if you're in a place where you have the ability to do it, there is a Second Amendment in this country. And this is going to be a statement not about guns. The Second Amendment gives you the right to form a well-regulated militia. Nothing in there says you need to have guns with you. A well-regulated militia are poll watchers. A well-regulated militia are folks who walk around your neighborhood with rules and regulations and identification, saying that you're a part of a group that is regulated, that follows rules, that has chapter leads and heads and whatever. It's literally
like
their
Neighborhood
playbook.
Watch, but with shotguns and AK-47s.
Or without
But you
shotguns.
don't, yeah, but you don't have to have them. Like, we think of well-armed militias in this country as the Proud Boys. Okay. They are a well-armed, well-regulated militia. They have rules and laws and organizational information. Do I believe in anything that they do? Fuck no. They're a white supremacist, neo-Nazi nationalist group. I hate them. However, the model is literally there for us to use. The Constitution guarantees the right for American citizens to form well-regulated militias outside of the purview of the government. That's literally what they said. That's what it is.
That's what the 2A amendment was for back in the day, right?
For. It is to protect you from the rise of a tyrannical government without the need of the state saying it's okay. It's not your National Guard. That's a lie.
That's so interesting.
That was supposed to be the military. The National Guard is supposed to be the military because it was supposed to not be a standing army. We have the power to make well-regulated militias. They do not need to have guns. Will groups have weapons? Yes, but weaponry is an escalation point. Imagine if 1 million people were walking around outside Minnesota, just surrounding ICE vehicles, not letting them move or drive.
That's what was going on, though.
Someone's going to get hurt.
Yeah.
Yes, they're going to shoot at you. Yes, they're going to provoke you. But if you sit there and you de-escalate that entire situation, they can't get all of us. I hate to say it. Some people are going to get hurt, but we cannot allow those people to be hurt to be the minorities. It has to be us. We have to be the ones willing to stand out front. We have to be the ones, because they're not going to shoot a white man the way that they would a black man.
Yeah.
They're not going to shoot me.
And the alternative is terrifying.
The alternative is terrifying.
Yeah.
You have to be willing. It's courage. We're the land of the free and home of the brave. Bravery requires courage, which means standing up when things are dangerous and hard. and doing the right thing. So keep doing those things. Like the more we do it, the smaller we make them look. And that's how we keep winning. Like I'm a big advocate for nonviolence because I've seen war. I know what war does to a country. I've been to Afghanistan. I do not want to wake up again to having mortars raining down around me in the middle of the night. I have PTSD from that. Like I have trauma because of that. Like I don't want everyone else to have that shit. That's what war will do.
It's so well said, Nick. You know, I don't know if you guys saw Zelensky today at Davos, and speaking about how the power grids are all out in Ukraine and how people are suffering in the cold winter there, and they are still fighting and they'll still survive. And he says, and they'll still win. And that's the kind of resolve they have as they're freezing every night without any heating or energy coming to their homes at all across Ukraine because of Vladimir Putin. And, you know, Dean, you're going tomorrow to Greenland, and and, you know, another situation where that could be another front in this war against democracy, because what the people of Ukraine are dealing with now, it could be what the people of Greenland deal with next, and the people of Canada deal with next, or the people of Europe deal with next. This is, you know, these are hard times that some people are going through in order to fight for the things that they believe in. And maybe you just want to talk a little bit more about your mission to Greenland, why you're going, who you're going with, and let people know what they can do to follow along.
Yeah, just subscribe. DeanBlundell.substack.com. You'll be able to see everything from Operation Endurance exercises with Arctic Command to interviews in town halls with locals, politicians, prime ministers, parliamentarians, MPs, defense ministers, attorney generals belonging to Denmark, Greenland, the EU, going with Malcolm Nance, Ken Harbaugh, Jacob Karsbo, obviously, who's been on the show dozens of times. To stand in front of Donald Trump with a message that millions of Americans, the vast majority of Americans, speaking of which, 300 million of them didn't vote for this prick, and they stand firmly with the people of Denmark, with the people of Ukraine. And you know, the interesting part, going back to the two-way conversation, is if you go to Greenland, you know, per capita, each person has 2 guns, right? So you've got 35,000, and then you've got, you've got 57,000 people, all of whom have guns. 37,000 of them have long rifles. It's a big deal, right? Muskox, you got to take them down. And they're expert hunters. That's how they live. That's how they sustain themselves. You know, and I look at what's going on in the United States, and you've got 400 million guns in the hands of 360 million people, and I'm incredibly anti-gun. But in Canada, to own a gun is a fucking privilege, right? But I'm starting to understand the importance of the Second Amendment. And understanding the importance of that Second Amendment in the United States at a time like this, when a tyrant has decided that he is the reason for the season and he's going to come after his own people while taking whatever he wants in an empirical fucking wet dream. Now, here's the catch. The people of Greenland and Denmark have no fear of Donald Trump. They have no fear of an invasion. They have no fear of what may come, and it still may come. Because the fancy language that Donald Trump used yesterday, and Mark Rutte helped him with it, that was, you know, the international community helping him out of this invasion corner that dumb fuck painted himself into. And he went to the wall with the idea of an invasion. However, there are not 3, there are 12 separate airstrips that still belong to the United States in Greenland. You've got Narsarsuaq, you've got Bluey 1, Bluey 2, you've got, it's called the Wormhole industrial complex, which is in Greenland. That's where they tried to develop a whole bunch of nuclear weapons and systems back in the day. They can put as many people in there as they want. They just want to fucking put a charge. Donald Trump wanted to put a charge into the EU, and he wanted to scare the shit out of everybody. And they can still do this. And the common thinking now is that, okay, well, we got to lay of the land, and we understand that Denmark, the European Union, Greenland, and all the allies and coalition of the willing don't want nothing to do with what Donald Trump wants to do, which is taking over Greenland. So they effectively gave him back the 1951 fucking treaty that Greenland signed with America, and they get all the stuff back that they had before. It's like it's nothing. It's a nothing burger.
Yeah.
He's walking around going, I fucking won. I took Greenland. No, you didn't. They fucking allowed you to promise that you were going to come into Greenland and just inhabit the space you already fucking own, you dumb twat. And when it comes to all the rare earth materials and the mining, They have all of those approvals all fucking
I know,
ready.
that's the thing.
So,
He won nothing.
no.
He got absolutely.
So
In fact,
we're going to go over there and mock him.
He reaffirmed what was NATO was all about and why the agreement was signed in the first place, which was that the United States was going to defend Greenland for Denmark and for NATO. So he basically, he lost.
And
but
here's
says
the
he won.
thing. Trump's like, yeah, we're going to fucking keep an eye out for those Russians and those Chinese ships, none of which are there. But you know what that means? They get to continue doing sentry exercises with their allies that they've been doing for the past 80 fucking years, looking for Russian and Chinese ships. Listen, everything this man does is a psyop until it happens to the American fucking people. He is absolutely intent on beating the shit out of you, taking away your elections, your fucking fundamental human rights. He can go out there and play war games all he wants, and the international community is going to call him on it. But in the United States, that fucker is allowed to do whatever he wants, and he's showing us right now. The international community is a different story. Nice to see some spine from my guy, Mark Carney, challenging everybody the other day. And it's nice to see the EU pick that ball up and go, okay, we're going to cancel that fucking dumb trade deal we signed with you. They did that yesterday as well. And we're going to be on a wait and see approach. You can go ahead and do whatever you want to do in Greenland because those treaties exist. You can call it whatever you want. We'll give you a fucking exit ramp. But by God, Donald Trump learned a fucking valuable lesson this weekend in the international community, and that was a rebuke. And the EU and the coalition of the willing one, now it is the Americans' turn to do the exact same thing to that fucking prick.
Because let me assure you, he is criming as we speak. He is stealing money from the Treasury right now, and he will continue to do it in order to enrich himself. The US dollar is tanking for a reason, and it's his intention to make sure that that US dollar crashes completely along with the US economy, so he himself can get rich of crypto. And that is happening right now, and that really is up to the American people to stop. There's no one else who's going to do it.
And it's really good that the international community is come together for the coalition of the willing versus this axis of assholes. Like, that's all we need. All the bully needed was someone to say big enough to say no. And the EU and Canada are big enough. The coalition of the willing are big enough to say no. And so are the American people. We have
four times bigger. We're 4 times bigger than whatever America can put into Greenland. 4 times. In some capacities, 5 when it comes to northern combat. Sorry, continue. Yes.
Like, and nobody wants to fucking do a war in winter in the snow. Nobody, unless you're from Canada or Greenland, where you're perpetually in snow and your favorite animals are moose, and you have Mounties who come down with their moose cannons and they attack you from Canada up north with the polar bear riders and the moose riders. Like, that's what Canada is. They got caribou.
Let's
and
not
moose
forget
coming to
about our SEAL army that we're employing
the
right now.
SEAL
with
army that
fucking
you guys-
laser beams on their heads.
Lasers.
Yeah,
Are they Jewish SEAL lasers? Are they
Well, there are Jewish lasers. There really are Jewish lasers, I found out the other day.
We got to have Jewish space lasers coming in. And
No,
changing
these
the
are
weather on this,
full
too.
on waspy Canadian lasers. Yeah.
No one wants to fight a war for Donald Trump either. I mean, this guy's such a loser. Like, he's the least inspiring leader in the entire world.
And the more we have like international support, it's because the reason we have international support is because Americans are standing up. The more we get international support, the more Americans then stand up. It's a cycle. It's this lovely cycle of pro-democracy where we flood the zone. And now we're seeing internationally that we are making a difference. A couple months ago, the international community was not pushing back as loudly or as together as they are now. Now they are. Because the American
I think that
people
ended
over the
yesterday, a
last
couple of days
year-
ago, when Mark Carney said, "Hey, everybody, take the fucking sign out of the window. We're not placaters. Let's do our own goddamn fucking business."
It's a rupture, as he said it.
And I think it's because the American people have started standing up. There are enough of us now that are actively out here every single day, now apparently on TV, going out and saying, "Fuck you, guy. Like, we can do this. This is America. We can make it better. We can go
100%.
strive for that dream where Zev can come back and hang out that way." Zev can come back and hang out in America with us instead of having to live in Canada. And
I love both
Dean
countries,
can
but
actually,
I would
I
love
love
to be
both
back in the
countries.
States.
with the having to live in
Didn't say
Canada
there was
It's a
any-
having to live as well,
He
you
has to
know?
live in Canada. It's safer there than it is here.
It's also colder here.
I do not blame you, but no soldier wants. I was in the army. No soldier in their right mind wants to go fight a fucking war in the cold. Your fingers get cold, your face gets cold, you can't pee anywhere, you can't take a shit in the field, you're uncomfortable. It's awful.
Especially
It's
because
awful.
Pete Thiel wants to get rich off the rare earth minerals. I mean, that's why they're doing it.
Yeah,
It's not
fuck
even
that
like,
guy.
hey, we found Elon Musk
I
today,
hope
Dean, by the way. Did you see he spoke at Davos?
What?
Elon Musk was speaking
Oh,
at
did
Davos
Elon
today.
say something at Davos?
I don't know what he said, but I saw he was on this list of speakers. So
Guaranteed, none of it fucking mattered, and it was all a lie.
Did he have a
Guaranteed.
chainsaw?
I didn't know it.
I'll
Yeah,
send
did
Hopping
it.
around
sunglasses?
doing starfish.
Was he all fucking
Was he
jumpy on
starfishing
ketamine
again?
again?
I don't know
Was
where.
he-
I didn't see the clip. I just saw he was scheduled to speak, and I was like, we found him. That's good. Gentlemen, let's wrap up
Well,
because
he's
it's been a
not
long
dead.
day of broadcasting here. Dean, we will see you tomorrow, but then you're off tomorrow night to Greenland. But in the meantime, Dean Blundell
Saturday,
does-
Saturday night, I leave for Greenland. And listen, we want to take you with us. That's the whole point of this. The Save America movement put out just a stunning ad. Nick, I'm not sure if you've seen this ad that they put out. I'm going to send it
I
to
haven't
you.
watched it yet.
I'd
love
yeah, the darkness comes to Europe. That darkness is a cancer named Donald J. Trump. Sorry, 1 second.
No worries.
Never mind. I'll let her sing us out. It's like background music.
It happens.
Listening to my dog yell. But listen, we're taking you with us, and to do that, you have to subscribe. Free or paid doesn't matter to us. Paid gets the content that we're going to bring back: town halls, conversations with MPs, stakeholders in Greenland sovereignty, Denmark sovereignty, the defense minister, the prime minister, Orla Olsen, who does an incredible job out of Greenland. He's sort of their chief. Their chief, like, fucking propagandist for good, for Greenland, for sovereignty. So we're going to be connecting with him, riding around with him. Malcolm Nance is coming. Ken Harbaugh is coming. Jacob will be there. And the unbelievable team, the multimedia team from the Save America movement are coming with us. And we're setting up Allied House, ladies and gentlemen, in the city of Nuuk. It's a house where we're going to welcome media from the world. We're going to welcome Greenlanders. We're going to welcome the Danes. And we're going to have some really serious conversations about how we get closer together and provide a line of sight into the psyche of the average American, which is Nick, which is me, which is Zev Shalev, that supports this beautiful partnership and this treaty and these allies, and we have for years, and that is our solemn duty. So while Donald Trump abates leadership and the free world, while Donald Trump abates America's solemn oath to NATO partners, to people we fought and died for, Article 5, we showed up, Denmark showed up, Denmark had more people killed per capita than any other countries, including the United States and Afghanistan, when they needed our fucking help. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who needs our help. We show up. We put our fucking bodies, we put our days on the line when it fucking matters. And I'm a big Ernest Hemingway guy. He was a war chaser, right? This guy loved to go to war zones, and when fascism came to Spain, he showed up with a group of people. He even fought. He did. He was in the foxholes with guys. He was reporting, but this is what he did. And Hemingway had this idea in his head that if we can show people what's going on in places where terrible things are happening to humanity, when they don't want you to see those things, when they don't want you to see the looks on the faces of the people, that certain countries, businesses, and interests are taking an interest in destroying the lives and the culture of those people, then we're not here for good. And that's why we're all going. So please go to the Save America channel here on Substack. If you can give them a sub, they'll have everything, all of our content, Malcolm, Ken, myself, Jacob, and the entire team. Give them a follow on Substack. Go and check out The Darkness is Coming. It's on my Substack, deanblundell.substack.com, and subscribe. I don't need anything from anybody. The good people at Save America have done God's work in making sure that this goes off without a hitch. And so we're going over with a pretty serious contingent. All I need for people to do is subscribe. DeanBlundell.substack.com. Sure.
How many people?
We've got a team of 4 influencers, journalists, former military people, and then we've got a support staff of about 10 that's coming over.
Oh, wow. It's going to be amazing. What a great trip, and very important. And maybe we'll see Jacob and Malcolm tomorrow here on the FiveStack.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, we're with you tomorrow. All the lads will be here. We'll have a chat about that. I'm with you all week next week from Greenland. I will not miss a day. So you have nothing to worry about. We'll have town halls with the people of Greenland and Denmark, and we're going to bring you content you can't find anywhere else. And of course, paid subs get exclusive access and unlimited access to all of our content. But please follow Malcolm, follow Ken. If you could subscribe to deanblundell.substack.com, the Save America movement on Substack, Twitter, Instagram, anywhere you find it, and share that video. That video gave me goosebumps. We're in a Churchillian moment, and we're deciding to show up together, everybody that needs to be there. So
Yeah, that's
we're
amazing. It's
looking
going to be
forward to it.
really great to
Thank
see.
you.
DeanBlundell.substack.com is where you find Dean's great content, and we'll see you from Greenland. Not tomorrow, though, on Saturday or next week sometime. And Nick, talk about
Thank
what's
you.
going on at Sick of the Shit Productions and the other stuff you're doing.
Yeah, you can find me at Sick of This Shit Publication.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I'll put you right back. Give me 1 second. Don't go away. Don't go away. Don't go away. There you are. Sorry.
There I am.
I'll get the hang of this.
No worries. I get it. New systems are fun, and we got to learn them.
You know what's nice though? This is a TV, like a HD system. And we didn't know that Substack was launching a TV network, and now they have like HD quality content that they can put on their TV Substack thingies. You have to go to the Apple Store, I guess, or the App Store on your TVs if you have an Apple TV, and download Substack. I guess it's an app.
And it sounds like, Apple and Google Play Store, I guess, both now have them, which is kind of awesome because never thought I would be on a TV. But I didn't actually think I'd be on radio either. So I've gotten to live both those dreams now at this point. But you can follow me at Sick of This Shit Publications, where I'm doing a lot of men's issues, men's health and mental health issues, as well as bannerandbackbone.com, which is the more civic side, engagement focus, action focus. And we're getting very, very close to launching the community calendar. That's going to have all of the shows so we can help work on deconflicting show calendars and schedules across the board, not just on Banner and Backbone, but with Dean and Zev and Lev and Waj, and help make a network of wonderful creators that we can all see, and a full TV schedule at this point, because
That's going to be
what
great.
We're sort of building to. So look for that here soon. There's going to be a new site, banner or broadbanner.com. That's going to be hosting a calendar for our broadcast community and the independent community. So those are where you can find me. I'm running some sales as always for 50 or 60% off, but full price helps if you want to become a paid member. Free subs really help for either side. Just building this up and growing as I go, and getting to put out this information, especially around men's health issues, because men, we need some work. And we're here to confront it.
I really like that focus. That's really good.
Yeah, it's not about pitying ourselves. It's about being better. And Zev is going to be one of my interviewees for the Intelligent Masculinity series that I've been working on. So please join us for that here in a couple weeks on that one. I'm excited for that interview, Zev.
I'm looking forward to that too.
And
Next week, by the way.
Thank you for having me for today.
Yeah, it's great having you on. As always, your insights are great, and thanks for sharing this with your community. And sorry, I got this frog in my throat. That won't leave me. But let me just say that tomorrow I was going to put out the Greatest Heist Chapter 8. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but it's going to happen by the end of this weekend, and it's a must read. So hang in there with me. I just haven't quite put all the final details together. This hearing today was a bit of a sidetrack for me, but we will get it out by the end of this weekend, and it's going to be really good reading for everybody to really understand the depth and breadth of the criminal mind that is Donald Trump, and what he did with Jeffrey Epstein in 2008 in order to make, a few $100 million. He sure did, while the rest of America burned around him, with so many people losing their homes, then their dreams, and their kids' educations in the 2008 crash. And Donald Trump made a killing. Not surprisingly, that's the kind of president we have today, and we can see it in the hearing today with Jack Smith. This guy is ready to commit any number of crimes, even against the prosecutors who try to prosecute him, and he's certainly getting away with murder and then some with all his criming. And that is our special coverage on Narrative tonight. We'll be back tomorrow at 3 o'clock, as you heard, with Dean for another FiveStack, and we'll give you full coverage of what's going on in Greenland. Hopefully we'll have our first live shot from Greenland, which will be exciting to have tomorrow on Narrative. And I'll leave you with this is Rep Swalwell from today's hearing, talking about all the work that Jack Smith had done for the country that he loves so much.
Mr. Smith,
have a great day.
I want you to have the utmost. Mr. Smith, I want you to have the utmost confidence in what you did. You did everything right. Harry Dunn, Danny Hodges, Sergeant Cannell, Mike Fanone, they did everything right. These guys, my Republican colleagues, are a joke. They're wrong. History will harshly judge them, so I want you to lean in today. You have nothing to be ashamed of. You did everything right, sir. And I am these guys are so lucky they're not under oath, because they would have to tell you what they really think of Trump. They call him crooked. They call him cruel. They call him a scumbag. I've heard you all say it. You're lucky you're not under Trump, but when the lights go on and the cameras are on, you're tiny, you're small, you shrink. Everyone remembers Matt Gaetz coming over here after a committee hearing. He would laugh at how stupid he thought Trump was. This is all a show. And Mr. Smith, you're just the latest act that they've brought in. But they can't erase what happened on January 6th because we saw it with our own eyes. Mr. Smith, after the mainstream media called the race for Biden about a week after the election, did Donald Trump concede the election?
He did not.
The next month, the Electoral College met in every state and voted Biden as the winner. Did Donald Trump concede then?
He did not.
Shortly after that, the last court case that Donald Trump brought was thrown out. Did he concede then?
No.
Is it your judgment then that only Donald Trump could have convened the mob in the size that it was assembled